But I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please! Please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is Wednesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. What are those things, you may wonder? Well, we do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and those things are aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. And of course, we do this live to include you. It's the secret weapon of troubled minds, of course. It's the conversation. It's you, it's me, it's us together. It's no inside sources. It's just ideas. It's just thoughts, concepts, and a little bit of maybe juice. That's what we like to call the concept of what was it? I believe it was Aristotle that said the mark of an educated mind is being able to entertain a thought without accepting it, and something to that effect. And we just call it drinking the maybe juice, because maybe a lot of this stuff is actually very, very maybe, and that's okay. One of the things about this show has always been, this is the question show. This is not the answer show. I always say answers are easy. Answers are propaganda. Answers are belief. Answers are dogma. Answers are, I also like to call it the slippery truth. And so many people are fixated on the truth itself. I'm less fixated. I'm more interested in the questions that maybe bring us closer to whatever truth that may be. And that's really the essence of Troubled Minds, what it's always been. And also getting together and just talking to one another, just talking to people that you may not ever meet in your life, talking to people that are clearly very different from yourself, but also very much the same. And I always say this, and this is the truth, that true diversity means that we talk to each other, means that we celebrate it, means that we get together and cough button, excuse me. We get together and we just consider all the things, and whether we agree or disagree, we can get along today, and then we could also be friends tomorrow, regardless of those disagreements or agreements. And again, like I always say, we have more. We definitely have more in common than we have not in common. And that's what's going on tonight with Troubled Minds. And of course, we're doing it live to include you, like I said. So we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, which is digital radio. And if you want to be part of the show tonight, it's really simple. Just pick up the phone and dial this phone number, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org right there in the on the stream. If you're watching the stream, got the phone number up and the actual website. Discord, of course, is a chat client. It's a voice client. We use it to do a talk show, of course, and the youngsters are using it to play video games and just communicate. And it's a great program. It's completely free if you have an internet connection, and it's bringing people together. It's a great thing. We are not sponsored by Discord. It's just a great program. So what else do we got? We're also again broadcasting on the Fringe FM, like I said. So please join the Discord there as well. I'm watching all the chat in all the places, and come say hi. Fringe.fm/chat. That will give you a direct invite to that Discord, and come say hi. I'm watching you in there right now. If you pop in there right now, I'll see you. And so what else do we got? So okay, also the Fringe, download the app, the Fringe app. You can find that at of course iTunes or your Android app store. It's completely free, and it's the easiest way to listen to Troubled Minds at 7 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Thursday. Just smash the play button. You'll get me, you'll get us, you'll get Troubled Minds, plus all the other great programming Fringe has to offer. All right, so let's do it. So again, right, usually it's my job to come up with a concept, to come up with an idea, to come up with a seed, sort of a starter conversational sort of thing. And I was just peeling through the news and doing my thing, looking at news cycles, trying to be inspired, right? And hopefully trying to be inspiring. And what this is about tonight is this thing called a near-death experience. Have you guys heard of this? I'm sure you have. If you're here listening to radio by dark of night, surely you've heard of a near-death experience, and some weirdness that's going on with that, because there's a new article that just hit, and this is from I know, it's the Sun. It's the Sun. The Sun is one of those much maligned newspapers, much deservedly maligned, by the way, because they're usually trash. But they had a great article here, and I thought, we should talk about this. And it wasn't just them. There's a whole bunch of people that kind of aggregate the news, and they'll take these ideas from other places. So I'll bet you this isn't their scoop anyway. So anyway, this is the headline, and this is where we begin tonight. We're talking about celestial gatekeeping. All right, and of course, how can you add that without the river Styx? So we're going to do that and talk about that tonight. And the idea is this. Let's begin here first, though. Back to the Sun. This is the first ever recording of the moment someone dies, and reveals how our lives really do flash before our eyes, this says. All right. The Sun. Scientists accidentally captured our most complex organ as it shut down, showing an astonishing snapshot into death. All right. So this is there you go. There's some photographs of this actual. They were doing a brain scan on this guy as he was actually passing away. It was an accidental thing. It wasn't like a morbid study or anything. Like, let's watch this guy die. It was. It happened. It was an accidental thing, and they happened to have him hooked up to the machine. And so here we go. The study accidentally found flashes in the brain that could suggest we do actually relive memories when we die. And here's the charts from the EEG, if you want to check this out, over a 900-second period. Chart here on the left shows the left brain hemisphere. The chart on the right shows the right brain hemisphere, and the point of death is marked with CA, cardiac arrest, which is over here on the right side. Again, that doesn't mean anything to you if you're not watching the stream itself. But what this is it's just again, so 900-second period, and they have him hooked up to this machine, and they're able to actually sort of monitor the brain as this individual passed away. And well, let's read this. A patient was being treated for epilepsy, hooked up to an electroencephalogram. That's almost like saying snuffleupagus. Know what I'm saying? Except I've said that one quite a many more times. electroencephalogram, there we go, or otherwise known as an EEG. The 87-year-old man's brain activity was being measured when he suddenly had a heart attack and died. This meant the 15 minutes around his death was recorded on the EEG. In the 30 seconds either side of the patient's final heartbeat, an increase in very specific brain waves were spotted. These waves, known as gamma oscillations, are linked to things like memory retrieval, meditation, and you guessed it, dreaming. This could mean, although many more studies will need to take place, we might see a short film reel of our best memories as we die. And we this is one of those things that's sort of the old trope, right? When you know, just before you spin off this mortal coil, you suddenly see your life just flashing before your eyes. Maybe time slows or stands still even, and you relive everything in just a brief moment. And they're saying that quite possibly, they actually collected information from this EEG that this is actually going down. It's not just a thing that people say. It's not, we've got these lots of firsthand accounts of these near-death experiences, and people describing seeing their life flash before their eyes, right? And so, well, there you go. So as we begin tonight, that's where we start. But there are some questions, of course, because this is the question show and not the answer show. So my question for you tonight is this. What do you know about near-death experiences? And do you believe that we actually do sort of have a highlight reel of our life, kind of our life passing before our eyes just before we pass on? And what's actually, then the second question here, which of course is a little more troubled mindsy if you hang with me here, What is happening in those moments, in those final moments, not just to the brain itself, as we see in this article here, which again, all these articles that I always cite and all the information, most of the information you can't cite and source everything because some is just good old-fashioned Hobbit common sense. See what I did there? Hobbit common sense? Yeah, that doesn't work. Hobbit common sense, right? Some of that you can't cite, but the rest of it, most of the information I get, I always link the down below. You can find it on YouTube. You can find this stuff on the podcast feed if you want to look at these articles yourself and read them yourself, and I very much encourage you to. Double check me, fact check me. Don't believe a damn thing I say, because I've got a microphone in front of me, right? And I'm on the internet, and that means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. So and that's how I see everybody else is, hey, let's have a conversation about this stuff, and let's not we don't have to be the stuffy D-bags about it, all right? And let's have a conversation. It's all good. Do fact check me. Don't take anything I say for granted, okay? But it got me thinking in terms of this whole idea of, all right, our life flashing before our eyes, these near-death experiences, right? Well, think of it in terms of this. My next question for myself, and the question for you guys tonight, is like this. What is actually happening, let's say, to the soul, not just the brain, but to the soul in these final moments of life? And does it really turn into a situation where time does slow down and we're reliving our life again? And we've talked about simulation theory. We've talked about all kinds of crazy stuff on this show. But if this is the case, and we do have some sort of maybe time slows down even to a halt, and we're able to relive everything in one final moment. We see it all once again, just to remind us of where we came from and where we're headed. And of course, well, what does that mean? Where are we headed? And so that, again, this isn't necessarily about heaven and hell tonight, but it is about a place known as a purgatory, or of course Sheol, as it's been called, or in Greek mythology, that's right, the river Styx, that leads you from Charon the boatman across the river to the underworld, Hades itself. So, well, what happens in those final moments of you actually, during that near-death experience, or let's say an actual death-like experience, so just before you do pass on, what is happening to the soul? Is there some sort of actual, I don't know, let's call it celestial gateway, and this gatekeeping idea that somebody is there, some entity is there trying to keep you out, unless of course you have the password. The password, please. In this case, Charon the Boatman, we'll get to him a little bit later tonight. He's actually a Greek mythology. They say that when you pass on, the soul actually goes down to the river Styx, which of course is a black river, a river of black water, or who knows what it is, if it's water or at all. But it's a river that guards the final passageway to, of course, the underworld, Hades. And but that's so on this side of the river Styx, you approach Charon the Boatman. You're supposed to have a coin that you pay him, and he will ferry you across the river Styx so you can go to Hades, right? But then, of course, there's more to this, because there's Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld, guarding the entrance to Hades, and all kinds of other things, which has always fascinated me, this Greek mythology stuff. But again, it got me thinking in terms of not just, okay, so these near-death experiences, our life passing before our eyes, what happens then to our soul? Do we actually slow down in time, in particular, to do what? Is this the moment when our soul is actually maybe making a bargain with Charon the Boatman himself? Did you bring your digital celestial coins to hand over? It also makes me wonder if Charon the Boatman accepts Bitcoin. Anybody know about that? I'd love to know. Love to hear your thoughts on that. But anyway, so what do you think is actually happening with this? In these final moments, whether it's a near-death experience or whether it's just before death itself, do you think there is sort of a waiting room, let's say a celestial waiting room, where the soul is maybe bargaining, maybe as the Egyptians said, weighing your soul against a feather, whether it's the judgment happening, whether it's again this negotiation with Charon the Boatman to take the soul across the river Styx. And this is an interesting thing too, and many of you may not know this, that if you actually approach Charon the Boatman in Hades and try to get a ferry across, and you don't have the appropriate currency, what he'll do is he'll push off, and he'll leave you there, and he'll go back across the other side of the river, and you're doomed to wander the bank of the river Styx for 100 years. And so that's an idea of where the ghosts come from, in that sort of this purgatory idea, this Sheol idea, this idea of the river Styx and Hades, and this, again, celestial gatekeeping, that if you're trapped outside of, let's say, the source or heaven or whatever you want to call it, again, I try not to be too too religious in terms of, I don't want to offend people in that regard, because I understand that I'm talking about mythology in this sense, but once you start kind of linking it up to modern day and actual religions today, you tend to piss people off, and that's trust me, that's not my goal here. The goal is to bring people together and have a conversation. Just consider what in the world's going on in the world we live in. So please don't take it that way. So let's call it the source, just so we don't make this awkward. But the thing is, right, so what happens then? What happens during this near-death experience? What happens regarding this moment where your life flashes before your eyes? And they caught it on this EEG. And again, they had this 87-year-old man hooked up to this thing, and they were trying to just do routine scans. They were treating him for epilepsy. They're trying to see what was going on with him, and he happened to have a cardiac arrest right there, and they were able to actually, because he was hooked up to the EEG, see that there was a brain actual things happening, like a flurry of activity just before and just after the heart attack. And then, well, that's the idea here tonight. So that's what's on my mind. And so I wonder, so the question for you guys is this: in that moment, just before you pass on, whether it's a near-death experience or whether it's actually passing on, in that final moment, what happens? And what, not just with the brain, we see this brain activity hooked up to the EEG with this individual. What happens further? What happens to the soul? Is there this idea of a sort of celestial gatekeeper in terms of maybe a celestial waiting room, like I said, purgatory, Sheol, these other things, or in my favorite mythology, ancient Greek mythology, we've got Charon the Boatman and the river Styx. So, love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Just another random Wednesday night on Troubled Minds as we consider all kinds of wacky stuff that nobody ever talks about. And that's what that is. All right, let's read a little bit more of this just as we get going tonight and let you know exactly what happened with this particular individual. So he did have the cardiac arrest and the rest of this stuff, but they're saying this could mean, although many more studies will need to take place, of course, we might see a sort of film reel of our best moments as we die, and that's based on this EEG that was hooked up to this individual. The parts of the brain that were activated in this study also suggests we could enter a peaceful, dreamlike state that feels similar to meditation. Amazingly, as our bodies shut down, our brains could still be working hard in a concerted effort to deliver on a final task. That makes the process feel less bleak. Dr. Ajmal Zemar, a neurosurgeon at the University of Louisville, Zemar, who organized the study, said, quote, "Through generating oscillations involved in memory retrieval, the brain may be playing a last recall of important life events just before we die, similar to the ones reported in near-death experiences. These findings challenge our understanding of when exactly life ends and generate important subsequent questions, such as those related to the timing of organ donation." Oops. That's not good. Similar brainwave changes have been seen in rats at the time of death, but never in humans before. And why not? Because that would be a really sick experiment, wouldn't it? Let's this guy's about to die. Let's hook up the machines and see what happens, guys. Well, I'm sure it's happened before, just probably not with bright lights on, if you know what I'm saying. So here we go. The study published in the Frontiers of Aging Neuroscience said, quote, "Our data provided the first evidence from the dying human brain in a non-experimental, real-life acute care clinical setting and advocate that the human brain may possess the capability to generate coordinated activity during the near-death period." So what is going on? What's actually happening here? What is your brain doing? Is it, again, connected to the soul and the rest of this stuff? And what's happening with that soul? Is this that last final moment before you spin off into wherever it happens to be, the celestial waiting room, as I'm calling it, because why not? Maybe this is when that negotiation is happening. Maybe this is when your soul is being weighed against a feather. Maybe this is the moment of judgment itself. Who knows? Again, like I said, I don't presume to have these answers, but I do like to consider all the possibilities, and pretty wild stuff. So once again, love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think happens to that soul in these final moments? Is it actually sort of negotiating, let's say? Maybe packet handshaking. That's if you live in a simulation with the source, and maybe negotiating the time of possibly a, what would you call it? A reincarnation or whatnot. So I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. It doesn't matter what you believe in. All this is open conversation. As you know, nonlinear and open-ended, and wherever you want to take this, we'll take this. So one more time, 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. Quick little bit. He says, let's see. However, just one single case study with a brain that had already been injured from epilepsy. This is what this was. But it might pave the way for a greater understanding about what happens to us and what we think when we die. But Dr. Zemar added, quote, "Something we may learn from this research is, although our loved ones have their eyes closed and are ready to leave us to rest, their brains may be replaying some of the nicest moments they experienced in their lives." And that's a nice thought. But what if it's different than that entirely? What if the idea is that we're actually negotiating the final negotiation? You tell me. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Like I said, just another casual Wednesday with Troubled Minds, talking about what happens in the final moments. Why is there just a flurry of brain activity, and do you think it has anything to do with Charon the Boatman and the river Styx? Love to hear your thoughts. If you want to be part of the show tonight, part of the discussion, what do you think? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And, of course, as we do this, we don't have to stay in Greek mythology. We can take this wherever you want. As usual, looking to hear from you. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More Celestial Gatekeeping, the River Styx, Charon the Boatman, and you when we return. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. And tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we discuss this idea of, that's right, a celestial waiting room, celestial gatekeeping, and of course the river Styx. What happens in that moment just before you pass on? Is there some sort of transition period? Is it like is described in Greek mythology with Charon the boatman, meaning you're negotiating your price to cross the river Styx? You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We can add to the mix, of course, near-death experiences. Why do people see entities waiting for them, actually? I've got a whole list of near-death experiences we can get into and read tonight. But as always, I'd rather hear from you guys because your experiences and maybe the things that you've read, maybe you've known people directly who've had near-death experiences. Maybe you've had one yourself, and I don't say that lightly, and that's clearly a very traumatic thing, and glad to have you back is what I'm saying. So point being is that what happens here in those final moments, we've got this idea of this individual from this article that had an EEG taken just as he was 87 years old. They were treating him for epilepsy and hooked him up to an EEG to scan his brain, and at that particular moment he happened to go into cardiac arrest, and so they were able to measure his brain waves and his brain activity as all of this was going down. So the question becomes, they saw a ton of brain activity just before the cardiac arrest, just after, and the question is, so what is your brain doing? Is it a handshake with something? Is it the soul situation going on? Is it actually like I'm describing? And maybe this is the moment where the actual negotiation takes place for your soul itself. You tell me. 702-957-1037. What's up, Crabapple? I see you over there on Rockfin. How are you? And let's go to Dakota. Looks like Dakota in North Carolina. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. Go right ahead. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Dakota, you're on Troubled Minds. Test 1, 2.
Sorry about that. How are you doing?
No, that's cool. Perfect.
Hey, how are you?
Doing very well.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Technical issues. It's a live show, man. It happens. So go right ahead. What's your idea on this? Thanks for finding us on Rockfin over there. I see you. And give us your take.
Yeah. So actually, I had a chest surgery when I was 19, and I had died on the table for 50 minutes. So I had an actual near-death experience. I remember when I was dying that I remember I was going down this, like, it was completely dark around me, but I could see this light, and it was like I was guided to this light, but I guess it was, I'm guessing God, because it was like this powerful force that I can't explain in a human term, but he told me to follow, so I followed him, and he showed me all these stuff in my life that he had been there with me, and then I was like, okay, and he said, but I'm not finished with you, and I need you to come back on Earth and do what I need you to do. I need you to be, a speaker for people, because I have autism, and basically he said that he wanted me to be like an awareness and to help people to become more enlightened, to help the human race and to further it along. So it's like he was wanting me to be like a part of his plan. So I felt really honored by that. But then I was also really overwhelmed. And then before I had any questions that I could be answered, I was like back and on the table where they were doing the surgery, and I had not known that I had died until they had told me when I had really awakened. And so all this, and then it's just crazy, man. And then the fact that I found your channel tonight, like 10 years later, just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Some of the synchronicities, huh? So it is strange now that you kind of frame it that way. That how would you know that you're clinically dead, right? Like you wouldn't know from the inside from that experience you described. It's again, it's foggy, isn't it? Until they tell you afterward. Interesting take there. So go ahead.
So no, my mom was there in the room. We heard mumbling and stuff, and they can understand it. Like it was just like I was talking, but I wasn't there. It was almost like I was in another realm at that time and talking to somebody else. And to this day, no one, even the doctors, no one could explain what was going on. They didn't know how to. And then when I came back finally to the reality and we're in now, and then it all started coming back to me gradually over time. At first I was confused, but then I started realizing, and now it's become like a journey of mine to figure out why this happened. And so now I'm just like going through what I have to do to get to where I need to be. So it's like a daily process, So it's hard to explain, but it's really deep.
Yeah, I got you. A couple questions for you, if you're okay with that. Regarding the situation, you said you saw a light. It was like a bright light, and you can only describe it as God as such. Was there only one entity, or were there several? Because in some of these near-death experiences, some people describe multiple entities. Was it just one for you, or was it several?
It was just one powerful, like direct. It wasn't even like a voice. It was like a vibrational like frequency that drew me towards it. But like I didn't actually like it wasn't saying anything, but it was like almost like telepathically like telling me to follow it. And I was like basically like just went where it wanted me to, and I was going towards the light, in the darkness. And it's hard to explain because it's something that in our realm that we're in now, we can't really pinpoint and put like a finger on what exactly it is. But as far as I'm concerned, that's what happened. And he basically told me then, like when I had gotten there, I had realized what he was saying. By the point I'd reached the light, I could actually understand him. And he was telling me basically what I was saying, like I had a purpose and that I wasn't done yet. And it was wild, And then people, they don't know like how to respond to that. So I can't explain that to anybody. So I'm glad that I could call in and like kind of talk to people like this that are kind of like-minded, that kind of are open-minded and understand and are able to, delve farther into these type of situations and areas. So I'm always been interested in that kind of thing, especially since, it's something that happened to me. It's more, I'd say, firsthand experience, but I like sharing. So.
Yeah, for sure. Again, like I said, you can read a lot of this near-death experience stuff, and there's a lot of very similar accounts, very much like you're describing, right? Some people say they meet Jesus. Some people say they see a bright light. And, there's that whole, argument we've had in the past of, do you approach the light? Is the light a trap? We've talked about that before. Did you get a feeling there that if you approached the light, it was like a warmth, like a happy light, or did you feel any kind of dread or danger in that moment?
I think when I got into the end, I was like, it was like a sense of like relief, like I had finished, like that sense you get when you finally do something that you've been wanting to do forever and you finally gotten it done. It was kind of like that sense of like, you could just sit back and like take it all in, like in awe, kind of like a theory I'd say is like, maybe like, if you watch sports, like when these guys, they play their whole life to get to where they want to be. And then, say it's football and the guy wins the Super Bowl. And then all these moments are going through his mind about how he went through all this process to get to where he was, to be where he's at that moment. And it's so overwhelming, and it happens so quick that you can't even. And then by the time you realize what's really going on, you wake up and you're back in this reality. So it was something that I can say that it's just something that you have to really be there to really understand what I'm telling you, because, and like I say, like in terms of like our reality, it's something that people wouldn't, understand from the way I'm explaining. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of have an open mind and be able to understand that, life is not just, us in this realm, but there's other dimensions and that kind of thing. So it's a lot.
Definitely. Another question for you, if you're okay with it again. So you were there and you saw this light, and it was an entity. You describe it as God. What was around you? What was were you kind of in like a just nothing, or was it like, was there anything you could really describe about the place you were in? How about that?
Well, it's funny because the place I am really wasn't really anything you could describe. It was just like this extremely well lit area, and I was just like, he was just like relaying this information to me, and I felt like I was there for a very long time. But then when I woke up, like I didn't know I'd been gone or asleep the whole. You know what I mean? When I was back in reality, so it's like time's different, in different dimensions. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Like Albert Einstein was big on like that. Like he explained how like was it like the theory of there's something about like space and like relativity based off your time and where you're at and stuff, and it has something to do with like the dimensions. It's really it's super scientific. That I can't really explain it right now off the top of my head, but.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's why we got a whole team of people here that can help with that type of stuff. So it's okay. I appreciate the phone call. Anything else you got for us tonight regarding all this? Do you think so? What about this car on the boatman stuff? That's why I asked about maybe your surroundings. If you noticed anything, whether it would have been like in nature or something, but you said it was kind of sanitized, just like a white light, very well lit area and nondescript. You can't really remember anything specific about the area itself.
No, it wasn't really anything that like stood out in terms of like. I think it was because I was so focused on what was being told to me. Like my sole attention was on that, so I didn't really like observe what was around me, because I think I was so like shocked at what I was experiencing that I don't think I had the capability to see what was going on around me. If you get what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Like I was in a state of shock, but like it's hard to say. It's like a state of shock and relief and awareness that I've never been in before. And then it was gone, shortly after.
Gotcha.
So it was something that I've never experienced.
Okay, but another thing you
like
said too, which I find incredibly interesting, like I kind of described as we began, in those final moments, so you had this near-death experience, and you said it felt like you were in this space for a very long time. So do you think that maybe there was sort of that, maybe time slowed down to a halt sort of thing for all this stuff to happen, and then something like that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It felt like when I woke up from what had happened, that like no time had gone by, but when I was there, like when it was actually occurring, it felt like I was actually, it felt like it had been like a week.
Wow.
Of like me like trying to get to the light. Like the light was like a week away, and I was just constantly like moving, but like time is different there. But I guess to them, like a week is like an hour to us. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah,
it's really. It's hard to say, the time differential.
Gotcha. Yeah,
it's definitely a difference. Yeah, it's definitely a difference. It's like thinking of like being like, say you're on Earth and then you go to another planet and time might go by faster there. So say maybe you go to, I don't know if this is true, but because we've never really done this as a human race, but say we want to go to like Pluto, even though we might not physically survive, but that theoretically, if we could, if we went to Pluto and we stayed there and then we came back to Earth, how much time would pass while we were gone? You know what I mean? Or would any time pass at all? Or will we go back in time? You know what I'm saying? So it's like a dimensions, like a multiverse kind of thing. So it's really deep,
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. You're definitely in the right place, my friend. I appreciate you finding the show. Thank you so much for calling and sharing your story here. This is why we do it, because like you said, this is not something you can kind of talk about around the water cooler. People think you're nuts, right? So like this is kind of one of those safe places you can get together and have an open mind and just share and consider, just kind of let your mind wander a little bit and think about maybe what those things were and what was happening. So thank you so much, Dakota, again, for the phone call. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for listening. You're welcome anytime. Call back whenever, okay?
Okay, thank you, man. I really appreciate you for letting me speak to you. And like I said, I honestly wasn't even expecting for this to happen, because I just stumbled upon your channel at the last second. I was on Rockfin and it's like it was destiny for me to talk to you. So,
there you
I
go.
believe in that kind of stuff. So.
There you go. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Appreciate it, my friend. Have a fantastic night. Thanks for the phone call. We'll talk to you soon. There you go. That's Dakota in North Carolina. He's over on Rockfin. He's over there in the chat, and he asked for the phone number. Ask and you shall receive. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Fantastic call to start us off tonight. So what are your thoughts on this? Again, we're talking about this near-death experience. We've got this article from The Sun where they're describing sort of this brain spike, this bizarre sort of electrical impulse that happen in the brain itself right around the time of death. This individual, they had him hooked up, an 87-year-old. They were treating him for epilepsy, and he had a heart attack while he was hooked up to all the brain machines and ended up passing away. So they were able to actually, with this machine hooked up, the EEG, determine that his brain was sort of in this hyper overloaded state for about 900 seconds. They were able to determine around the time of this heart attack and him passing on. And so what do you think is happening? So the idea there, we got a great firsthand account from Dakota describing something similar, where he was actually had passed away and on an operating table sort of situation in a hospital at least, and he was confronted by this light, and he spent a week chasing after this light to come back, and it was speaking to him, telling him these things that he wasn't done, and they needed him back here, and he came back. And so interesting. So what do you think is actually going on in this final moment just before, whether it's going to be a near-death experience or whether it's the moment before we pass on? Is there this bizarre thing happening with, well, what would you say, maybe Charon and the river Styx? And I say that clearly tongue-in-cheek. I think it's just a fantastic mythology, and always kind of tickled my brain in the right way when I was a youngster reading these stories, the ancient Greek myths. But now, what do you think? Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. Let's go to Jennifer in Missouri. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. Go right ahead. Sorry about that. Took me a second to click the button. Hey. Hello.
No, it's fine. Yeah, this is cool. This is a good topic. So yeah, I think that there is like a type of angel of death, or maybe there's family members, perhaps people, like these beings even come to the person before they're dying completely, like the signs of, like if death was on them somewhat, perhaps then like the angel of death is already kind of following them in a way, or is with them. And then, or, the loved ones of that individual, or some spirits that have become attached to the person before they were dying, or there perhaps to guide them. In the case where it's like a long going type of death, like where it's kind of foreseen, I think in that kind of scenario, it's like that. Like, my grandmother, she passed away from Parkinson's, and it was kind of a slow thing. And my mother told me that she went and stayed with her for a while, and was taking care of her throughout that whole ordeal. And then at the very end, she said she was very tired, and she'd be sitting in the recliner looking down the hallway that would go to my Mima's room, and she would see like shadows moving like between the doorway of her room and the hallway, kind of. And sometimes even in the room itself, she would see like, coming and going. And that Mima herself too was like seeing like people there, or thinking that she'd seen people there. So I think that in the case where it's kind of a slow and foreseen event, that almost like, like when a woman goes into labor or something and there's knowing about it, everybody's kind of prepared. But when it's kind of sudden, that's a different story. Like in the case of a sudden death, I wonder if it was even brought on by, certain types of spirits even could bring on an event like that, like an accident, for example. Or if even so, if there's a bit of a delay in the whole process because it was a surprise, and they're not sure what's happened to them. I think it's like waking up from a dream too, like in the scenario that you're describing. Like I've heard that said, everybody's heard that before, that, like when you are dreaming and you die, and or if you're fixing to die in a dream and you wake up, I imagine it could be something kind of like that too. Like Like it suddenly you seem like you're waking up somewhere else. And like how when you're coming out of a dream, you don't completely come out. Sometimes you come out all at once, and sometimes you come out kind of slow, like where you remember the last part of the dream. I think it could be like that. And then as far as those gatekeepers, there's tons of stories about that, but I was thinking about Odin. Can you hear me okay? Am I still with you?
I'm here. I know we've
Okay.
dropped you off a couple times. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening. Go ahead. You said Odin. I'm with you.
So Odin. Oh, lots of names for that god. And what's really interesting about him is he's got like a kind of a Grim Reaper type of background. Like he's the god of the gallows too, and of like sinners and bad people. He'll come for them too, like the god of the gallows. And the stories about him are that like some of the warriors and stuff, like if they were really good warriors and nothing could cut them down, Odin himself would have to come down and cut them down. And he would appear as like an old man. And like there was one account of these people, like this man, and he was riding in a cart with this old man, and the old man was Odin, and he turned around and took him out. And it's like an honor to die that way, to be killed by Odin, because it meant that nothing else, no other man or event was able to take you out. So God himself would have to come down and do it, Odin, like in that case. And so it's kind of the premise of like the Grim Reaper, I think, too, that we have today, like cutting people down with the scythe, or the scythe, I guess. And then I've heard of dark mares too, like people talking about, like in this one case, I've heard of it a couple of times, but one case there was this elderly woman, and she was afraid of it. She was seeing like a horse, looked like a horse apparently, and people call it a death mare. But in the case with this woman at the nursing home, she was afraid of it, because I think she kind of knew what it might be, But I guess you get on it and ride off or something. I have no idea. And then I don't know. I also wonder about the Hat Man too. Like I had a dream where I was in this downtown of this town I lived in, and I came across these two girls at this club in my dream, like a bar type of thing. And I was visiting with them, and then they were going to go back, and they had an apartment above it. And I went there, and they were like, the apartment had all this old stuff in it, and like clothes and things. It was really cool, and they were really friendly. But I remember looking out the window, and there was this man with like this enormous broad-brimmed hat, and he was like really tall. And we passed him when I was coming in to the apartment too with them. And I saw him out the window as well. And he didn't say anything, but he was like looking at me all crazy. And I kind of wondered if they couldn't go out of that area, like he was gatekeeping where the ghosts could be even, because I suspected that they were ghosts. Anyway, and the whole thing, I think, when you were saying that the brain switching, like the scientist, he was saying that it's something the brain does to make death feel less bleak. Like, I think that sounds so weird that the brain would be programmed to take care of something like that. It doesn't seem right to me that the brain would, be like, now when we die, we're going to have, a way for us to kind of smooth it over so it's less bleak for ourselves. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think the brain would think that way. But I mean, I don't know. But that just sounded weird when he like in the article.
Yeah.
It was like that. Yeah, I thought that sounded really strange. But
it's a nice academic way of trying to make something horrific sound not so bad. What can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are out of time, my friend. We're out of time. So final thought here, and appreciate the phone call very much.
I do think too that there's a negotiation of sorts at the end, like a pilfering of memories. If there's enough good ones, you go to heaven. If there's not, then maybe you have to suffer through some things or something. I don't know.
Gotcha. All right. Perfect. I appreciate the phone call. Jennifer here has a YouTube channel. Check it out. Links in the description. Thank you for the phone call, my friend. Always a pleasure. Have a fantastic night. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Have a great night.
Thanks, you
Bye.
too. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Again, that's Jennifer. Give her some love on the YouTube. Links in the description. Good stuff. I appreciate the phone calls. 702-957-1037. Celestial Gatekeeping and the river Styx. What's going on with this? Do you think there is some sort of actual something going on, or is this just academic talk for mumbo jumbo? You tell me. As James in the chat says, great calls already. That's 100% true. And looking to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this idea of celestial gatekeeping and, of course, the river Styx? This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. More, all of this and more of your calls when we return. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. We are talking about alien abduction phenomenon. Aliens.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing fantastic. Through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
All right, so maybe,
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories or ideas or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is Wednesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific. What are those things, you may wonder? Well, too much, so let me sum up. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. Taking your phone calls tonight as we discuss this idea of a celestial gatekeeper. People have these near-death experiences, and as we heard from Dakota, who just called in the previous hour, well, there seems to be a light on the other side, maybe communicating, and this corroborates stories from a lot of people with near-death experiences. But it got me thinking in terms of this article from The Sun regarding they actually had an EEG, an EEG, which is electroencephalogram. I said it, hooked up to this individual, an 87-year-old man, as he passed away. And of course, it wasn't intentional. They were treating him for epilepsy, and hooked up his brain, and were kind of monitoring things. And what ended up happening is he had a cardiac arrest. He had a heart attack while they were treating him for this epileptic thing. And so they inadvertently basically captured the brainwave state as he passed away, with not just with the heart attack, but then before and after the situation, and as he did pass away himself. So it got me thinking in terms of, well, of course, because this is Troubled Minds, and what's happening in those like flurry of moments before and after you pass away, because of course after you've been labeled clinically dead, there is still brain activity, and it seems to be Fast and Furious, even to the point where they're describing this as maybe that moment of your life flashing before your eyes. We've all heard the term before in a near-death experience, or when people, get that far and are able to come back and describe what happened. They're describing this instance of maybe seeing your life happen again, right? And as Dakota said there, and many others have suggested that time seems to slow down, and that's what I was wondering about. This is maybe this is that moment of, well, judgment. Again, measuring your soul against a feather in the Egyptian way. Shout out to Matt in California. What's up, buddy? Or let's say maybe even this Charon the boatman, where in Greek mythology, right, there's that moment where you're supposed to pass over into Hades, and Hades wasn't necessarily like hell. It was just the realm of the dead. That's where you went. Everybody went to Hades when you passed away. But of course, it was guarded by not just Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld. It was guarded also by the river Styx, a gigantic black river, impassable except by boat. And there was only one boat and one boatman, the ferryman named Charon, the boatman. And what they used to do is they would put a coin in people's mouths when they died, so that when they actually approached the river Styx and Charon the boatman, they had a coin to give to him as payment to be brought across the river Styx into Hades itself. And so it makes me wonder, right, if that sort of situation, again, we're talking mythology here, but what if there is some sort of celestial gatekeeper, in that when our soul tries to pass on, we do have to have the password, or we do have to have payment of some sort? And is there a judgment process happening? What's going on with that? Love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had a near-death experience or heard any of this? Have you looked into it? What do you know about this? Do you think there is some sort of celestial gatekeeping process happening? And that's where we begin tonight. That's the question as we continue taking your phone calls. If you want to be part of the show, as always, the secret weapon of troubled minds is you. And give us a call, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as simple as that. You can also click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. That's the official website. And the phone number is on top. You can't miss it. The Discord link is right on top. You can't miss it. And that's troubledminds.org. Also, we are, again, doing this live, of course, like I said, obviously, since we're taking phone calls. And we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D Live, and Twitter. And of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, which is digital radio. And join the Discord over there as well. Discord's a chat client, a voice client, completely free if you have an internet connection. Just go to fringe.fm/chat and come say hi. I'm watching that chat as well. I'm watching the chat in all the places, trying to keep up with all you guys and all the amazing thoughts out there. Robert on Rockfin says, maybe instead of those flashes seen on the dying man's brain was not best memories, but simply his soul leaving. And it could be. That's what we're talking about tonight. What do you think is happening in that situation? So one more time, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show just like this. Let's go to MJ in Virginia. MJ, welcome to Troubled Minds. Go right ahead, my friend.
Hey, can you hear me good?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, great. The topic is death in between. I don't know if there's a bidding for the souls, but I think there's a time period of adjustment to where you're transitioning into death. Okay, and when the brain's still going, it's just a transitional stage. That if you're going to, and it could be at that point, it's questionable as to whether you want to go or not. I've been offered death twice, and you were talking about slow motion. The second time was a motorcycle accident, and if I was right out in Arizona and riding around, and if I went back the way I came, I knew that I was going to die. I just thought I could see it short-lived. I saw as far as down the road I was going to go. After that, I didn't see anything. And I stopped and I got cold chills, so I decided to go the other way, and I thought if I go this way, I'll survive. I'll survive the accident. Or so, I don't know how I put it, but I know I'd make it through. I'd make it through and get home, is what I kept thinking. And I had an accident. And it was unplanned, but it happened. And I was flying through the air because the motorcycle hit a rock, and it launched me off the bike. So I'm flying through the air. Everything freaking slowed down. And I had time to relax and think about what was going on. And I actually asked myself, I kind of looked at the sky. It was like, seconds was happening. I looked at the sky and I said, is this my time? And then suddenly my face hit a pile of gravel, and I was, fine. I didn't die. But when you said something about the time slowed down, it slows down. And
you there? Did we lose you? Okay. You just stopped. So you said so time does slow down. All right. So let me ask you about this motorcycle accident. So you saw just darkness ahead, and so you knew. So that was like offering you that you knew, and you turned around, but there was still an actual. You did have a choice. You did.
Yeah, and I knew it. See, this happened one time before. When I was living in Phoenix, I had a mother-in-law cottage. And I was bartending at the time, working the psychic phone line, bartending, all crazy stuff. And I was in bed, and I woke up. It was a day off, or a night off. And I woke up in bed about 1:30 in the morning, and my throat was swollen shut. I couldn't breathe. I woke up gasping. I was like grabbing the sheets. I was looking like I couldn't breathe. And the throat was totally shut. And I just got up, and I started, I went in and got some ice cubes out of the refrigerator. And I started just putting it in my mouth, and that took the swelling down. And so, okay, fine. And I started getting breathing again. But as soon as I stopped the cold water, the ice, my throat would swell up again, and I started gasping for air again. And this went on all night. So I took the bag of ice cubes up to it was a Circle K, like within walking distance. Went up there and got me a big tub of vanilla ice cream. And I was eating that on the way home, and I just ate it the rest of the night. The swelling went away as soon as the sun started to rise, the swelling stopped.
That's weird.
Yeah. And that was the first time I was offered death. Now, nothing was going on in the life that was either bad or good. It was just sort of kind of, things are going, it's average stuff, no big deal. But that was the first time that happened. But I remember that as soon as the sun started coming up, started getting light out, the swelling just went away completely. It was gone. And the second time with the motorcycle, there was a rock that it would be was it visual? I can't think of the word right now. Optical illusion, and it looked like the rock would be hanging out over the road, which it doesn't. But if you're driving towards it, it looks like you're going to have to curve out onto the other lane to get around it, and you really don't. But it's kind of dicey to get underneath it, even with a motorcycle. And I just had the oddest feeling. I looked back at it. I thought, if I go back that way, I'm going to get killed. And I parked between. There was a T-stop, and I parked there, and I was kind of walking around just to kind of air out because the vibration of the bike, you're traveling a long time. And I looked at the other way, and I said, if I go that way, I'll be okay. I'll get home okay. And on the way home, I got a concussion, and I started, phasing out. Like I drove a little ways out, and then parked again because I started shaking and getting really cold. So I got off and parked the bike, and I started walking around, and I caught myself walking out into the desert. I just stopped myself. What am I doing? So I got back on my bike, and I got home. But that was the second time. The third time was actually, you're going to love this one. It was an alien ship coming in, and I was meditating in a small town, and I was just up there having a great time meditating. It feels like I was sinking into the rocks and just really relaxed, enjoying the peace and quiet and the fresh air. And I just had a funny feeling. I looked up to the right, and there was this big, round cloud, and it looked like a rain cloud underneath, but it was just round. And sky's clear everywhere, but it was just this perfectly round cloud, and big, too. It wasn't small. And I looked up at it, and the edge of it started dropping down this lip, like it had an edge to it on there, upside down. And then I went into, back in. I thought, I'm going to go back into my meditation. And I couldn't do it, and I couldn't get back to where I was, so I just looked up again, and then a second lip had started hanging down, and I just looked at it, and my honest feeling was, it's not time for me to go. I got to go. So I got up immediately, got down to the car, and I just left.
That's wild. That's wild. So you think there is a choice involved here? It's one of those. So this maybe transitionary phase is the choice to maybe come or leave or stay in this realm.
I think on particular cases you do. I caught mine early, I guess. I don't know. But mine would have very, very much a conscious choice here. And I think there's, like, if you're in an operation and you're, like that Dakota was talking about, I think in that situation, you're given the choice. Or maybe it's not your choice. Maybe it's just not your time. And you're just put back in your body. But when you die, from my experiences working with spirits that are in between or in that phase of transition and have never crossed over, it's used for Some people just don't let go of their life automatically. And they're still hanging on to their life, and they're dead. You need to move on. And some people they hang on for a long time, and then once they're finished with it, then they're able to move on someplace else. And where that someplace else is, I've also seen where you can, if you choose to, and there is such a thing as watchers. You can go up and hang out with them, or you can kind of float over here, do over there. It's sort of like once you get free of here, there's all these other choices you can go entertain yourself with until you decide that you want to come back into physical body again. So there's a ton of things to do. It's just not, it depends on the person and what's going on and what they're going to learn out there or what you learned here. I was around my mom, and I was around her teen time, and, she's getting older and older, and she was having cancer, got over that, and things kept happening, but you're with them, so you're going through that transitional period while they're living, and you can grieve while they're living because you know that time's coming, and it's coming soon. And then they die. Of course, that happens. And also, what I noticed with my mom was, she was, and she, my dog was looking at her one day, and she said, and he was sort of smelling the air. It's like, what are you doing? And she just turned to him and said, and she looked at dogs, and she goes, you know what's going on, don't you? And she knew at that time. Shortly after that, she showed up with cancer. And that she knew what was coming, and I knew what was coming. And I think when people knew that time is coming, there's an easier transition once you pass away, because she crossed over fairly quick. She came in a couple of times, and I talked to her on my board, and she already crossed over. I think other people just don't process life and death simultaneously. I don't know how to put that, but it's kind of like your time's coming, and you're sick, and it's time to process things. You know that time's coming. It's not so much evaluating your life here. It's processing the fact that you're leaving and letting go.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about this idea that there's some entity there, that maybe there has to be a password given, or maybe the weighing of the soul against a feather, something like that? What do you think about that? Is there some sort of actual gatekeeper that's maybe parsing souls as they come through?
Well, I had an experience with that. I was up in this one town I like to go to when I was there in Arizona, and when I was living there, I had this dream, and the dream's ending with this guy in a robe, not really gray hair, and not at the pearly gates, but there were wrought iron gates, but there were large gates, and he had his arms out, and he's putting me back in his body, or in my body. Like he'd taken me somewhere, and now they're bringing me back, but they allowed me to see him. And all I felt was just unconditional love. I've never felt you have to experience that level of love. It's just, and you just don't want to leave it. You just don't want to go anywhere. And of course, you start waking up and you come back to the real world. I don't know if there's someone who is at the gate and says, okay, what do you want to do? Check you out. Well, you go in that section over there. It may be someone there checking to see, is it your time or not?
Okay, so there's something going on there. Exactly what it is seems to be a little bit unclear, right?
Well, I mean, you're not going to know until you die.
Right.
For one thing. And two, there's stuff going on that, in dreams and whatnot you experience, and you're talking to somebody. So, I don't know if it's a judgment thing. I don't like the word judgment, and I don't think there is a judgment. But there's, like I said, that entity or that man was there, and he's represented as a man, and he was there. And if you talk about doing psychic readings and ghosts and all that stuff, there's plenty of stuff going on. I think there may be a filtration system that you go through to a certain area, and there could be somebody, like a guide or somebody, a guide or a guardian there to kind of help guide you through that type of thing. That could be that until you get to the place where you need to go or where you want to go to another transition. But there could be something like that.
Gotcha. Okay, sweet. Thanks so much for sharing the stories, man. I appreciate it very much. MJ in Virginia, a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. You're always welcome. Thanks for the call, bro.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great night. There you go. Good stuff from MJ. And I think this is exactly why we need to talk about this, right? Like, people have had these experiences where they've seen these things, and how much of this is real, right? How much of this is real, not just real in the sense of like a singular experience, but we seem to have these sort of recurring themes, people seeing similar things, and this idea of maybe these gatekeepers that are keeping, or I don't know, maybe parsing souls, or again, measuring them, or bidding for them, like MJ said. I have no idea what this actually is. Of course, like you said, well, you really don't know until you die, and I guess that would be the truth, wouldn't it? But we're looking to hear from you tonight. We're talking about this idea of maybe a celestial gatekeeper, sort of like Charon the boatman from, or the ferryman from Greek mythology. Of course, that's been one of my favorite stories for a very long time. Pretty terrifying in that Charon the boatman is blind. He's sometimes described as like an old blind man, or even as the Grim Reaper himself, more like a skeleton in a black robe sort of thing. And you have to pay him for him to ferry you across the river Styx to get your soul into Hades. Now, the interesting part about this, to me, is they say that if you can't pay him, or you don't bring the appropriate currency or whatever's happening, like I said, does Charon the boatman take Bitcoin? Then maybe, or no, definitely, he leaves you to wander the banks of the river Styx for 100 years. And that's one of the ideas of where ghosts come from, meaning that they're stuck. They cannot pass on, and so they're still stuck in the material living world, walking around and doing the thing, kind of haunting places, right? And interesting. What's up, Brian After Dark? Maybe it's like that scene from Beetlejuice. You take a number and wait your turn, right? Yeah, like the back to that celestial waiting room we were talking about a couple shows ago, right? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have answers here. I don't think it's easy to have answers here, because once again, we're talking about one of the most mysterious things ever as far as people are concerned. What happens when you die, type of thing, right? But there's this idea, right, of maybe this waiting room, or this idea of is there some entity that's waiting for you, sort of like a yeah, the Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin joke. I like the Bitcoin joke. Hey, does Charon the boatman take Bitcoin? But is this the idea of what this is about? There's some sort of maybe spirit gatekeeper or something that allows us to move through, or to not pass on, based on what exactly? I think that's the question. I don't know. Mbole in the chat says, perhaps we experience each one of the gatekeepers, meaning there's more than one, of course. He says, we are multidimensional light entities manifested into a singular point. We think we are a complex multicellular organism. However, our eyes are made of primordial goo. Yeah. Good stuff in the chat. I'm reading you guys out there. Thanks for spending your time with us tonight. So I don't know. And there's these other ideas too. Of course, purgatory, which of course is here we go. This is straight from the Ministry of Truth Wikipedia. I'll read just a little bit of this. But the idea of purgatory is that the place before you move on. Right? Check this out. So purgatory is, according to belief by some Christians, an intermediate state after physical death for expiatory purification. Oh boy. The process of purgatory is the final purification of the elect, which is entirely different from the punishment of the damned. Tradition, by reference to certain texts of Scripture, sees the process as involving a cleansing fire. Some forms of Western Christianity, particularly within Protestantism, deny its existence. Other strands of Western Christianity see purgatory as a place, perhaps filled with fire. Some concepts of Gehenna in Judaism resemble those of purgatory. And of course, we'll get to Sheol as well, because that's another one here that seems to have some interesting connections here regarding this idea. So what do you think? What are your ideas here with what happens in that final moment when somebody passes away? Those near-death experiences. People have described seeing light beings or lights, or being moved to some place, sort of a nondescript, wide open place, and they're waiting for something. It seems like the joke in the chat there, it's like maybe it's like Beetlejuice, you show up and take a number. MJ said it's not really like the pearly gates. He had a situation, it was like a wrought iron sort of gate. So what's actually happening here, and what do you think this is? Is there a spirit that's waiting there to basically end up with some sort of, I don't know. Well, the password, please. May I have the password? I don't know. I don't have the answers. You guys know me. I'm not the answers guy. I'm the questions guy. And the question tonight is exactly this. What happens in those final moments before somebody passes away when their brain is sort of on overload? All the electrical impulses firing away like crazy, as if they're trying to get one final act done. Could it be that that final act is a negotiation of sorts for the fate of the soul itself? Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, and we're taking your phone calls tonight, as always. But tonight, we're discussing the idea of a celestial gatekeeper, sort of like Charon the boatman from ancient Greek mythology, in that when you pass away, there's somebody there, in this case, the boatman, to ferry you across the river Styx and into Hades itself. Is this a thing? Even if it's not Charon himself, is there some other entity watching over the transition between life and death? Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. Easy as that. M in Canada, are you there? I see you down there in the chat. I'm not sure if you want to be in the caller queue. Let me know, Marcia, and I'll put you on the show. You're in the chat, but not the right place, so I'm not sure if you want to be on here. Just let me know. Just type in the chat, and I'll bring you in. What's going on, guys? What's up? Brene Sauce says it's a thing. It's a thing. All right. I guess it's a thing. All right. So there's more here. So interestingly, we began with this article tonight regarding this. They hooked up this EEG to this the individual to treat him for epilepsy, an 87-year-old man. He had cardiac arrest while they were doing this, and they were able to actually monitor his brain functions in the moment he was passing away for approximately 900 seconds here. And they determined, of course, because they were able to see this in real time, that there was a heightened, let's say, brain activity, like just synapses firing like crazy, electrical impulses just pumping through this guy's brain. And so it got me thinking in terms of, well, what's happening there? Is this that moment of, let's not say judgment. I also don't like that word, like MJ said. But what about if it's something else entirely? Like, well, maybe this is the handshake. This is the proverbial handshake moment when the soul does pass on, and it's becoming something other than, I don't know, the transitionary phase, or it like in Beetlejuice with the waiting room, take a number. Like, what's happening with this? I don't really exactly know, but I think it's fun to speculate because I don't think anybody exactly knows either. So one more time, 702-957-1037, and we're discussing this idea of celestial gatekeeping and, of course, the river Styx. Let's go to Joe in Florida. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. Go right ahead.
Good evening, guys. Hope everybody's well. And on this side of the terra firma, and not 6 feet under. When you first started talking about it and showed that CAT scan, a bunch of different thoughts went through my mind. One of them, depending on how we describe it, the way I would look at it is we're kind of uploading somewhere, since I'm kind of looking at things on a matrix standpoint, but really it's no difference than the last caller spiritually saying that maybe we could travel and hang around with other beings or energies until we decide to come back. Getting back to the fear hole real quick, the last couple of days, I've had more coincidences, but they're not coincidences. And I've had some names that aren't typically common or that I don't see all the time, but they've come up twice in a row with different families. And it was the name Antoinette or Annette. And it was spelled, they were both spelled a little bit differently, and then Yvonne. And they were like opposites. One of them was Antoinette that was dead, and Yvonne was the daughter, and the other one was Yvonne that was dead, and Antoinette was like the daughter. And 2 days apart, and I'm going through the files, and it's clicking in my mind like a memory. But proof yeah, that I definitely think there's proof that when we go somewhere, and I think these signals are like breadcrumbs. That because maybe because I work in the business, I just see it much more often than regular people do. But when I start to share stories with people that come in, they start to realize. Now, as far as a gatekeeper, not so sure. I mean, I could tell you that my dad and other people that have been close to passing away with cancer and other things, sometimes they'll be in a state where they'll see, they claim family, that the family's coming. You know, Jen mentioned the Hat Man, which kind of brought me some chills because I worked with a gentleman in the crematory, and he lived in Chicago at one time, and he told me that he saw the Hat Man. Here's the funny thing tonight. The description's pretty, pretty standard, but, Jen saying wide-brimmed hat and all those things was almost verbatim to what the gentleman I worked with said. And he said when he saw that guy, the Hat Man, he knew he had to get out of Chicago because he could have been the next one shot in the neighborhood. And the guy left Chicago and went to the Marine and turned his life around. Basically, didn't get into a gang or anything. When my first girlfriend passed away, I had a dream that the city was black granite. Like we've said it on the show before. Everything was lit up, everything was clean, but everything was black granite. And maybe that was my version or interpretation of where they were. Where she was and with other people, I remember it clear as day from 1993. So, those are my thoughts. I don't know about a gatekeeper. Maybe it's, described that way from stories passed down so that we know the heart is a feather. Do we take a recollection? Yeah. I would like to think more so as it relates with the families that I work with. I've had some difficult families, especially since the last 2 years with everything that's been going on. But I've had a lot of recognition. And I kind of hope that when I go, when my time comes, however long I stay in this industry, that the people that I've helped are waiting for me. I remember Robert saying last week, I believe, that we're here to entertain, maybe, or that we're being watched. So I hope when I go up, wherever it is I'm going, that all the families that I've helped are kind of there, just like slapping your 5 while you're going through the tunnel, if that makes sense. That's my vision or my version of it.
Nice. And for those of you who don't know, Joe here's a funeral director out there in Florida, and so he's describing his process in this. And maybe Joe, maybe you're the boatman, you're Charon of the underworld and the river Styx. The plot thickens.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I put it in the chat, but I've been a Stargate fan since the original, forever. And I did a cosplay for Stargate, but I did the Anubis helmet. Probably one of the first ones that's done it now. People are starting to do it and doing it really well. But I've got a big Anubis helmet and Anubis helmet, like you would see in Stargate. And just because I don't have a place to put it, it literally sits on the post of the bed that my wife and I sleep in, which doesn't really creep us out. But I looked at this thing and I'm like, that's what I've become. I didn't intend to be a funeral director. I wanted to just teach somewhere and, teach some kids and, have the kids, be better citizens. I mean, I did have an opportunity to teach for a while. And then, things happen in life, divorce, moving, couldn't get a job in the county that I was moving to. I was doing part-time funeral work, and I kind of fell into it. And every damn time I want to get out of that job, somebody writes me a letter or something happens, and I stay in it for some reason. So, God or my program or whatever it is I've chosen isn't done with me yet. So
somebody needs you there, Joe. We need you there, Joe. Good stuff. Yeah, the idea of this gatekeeper is a little bit terrifying to me, because what happens if like you're turned away, right? It's sort of that idea of like the dead walking the earth, right? Is if you are turned away, sort of in the idea of again, Charon and the river Styx, if you don't have payment to go over into Hades, you're left to wander the river and back into the material world to basically as a shade or as a haunting, right? That sort of situation. I think that's the most terrifying part, sort of that purgatory idea, like stuck in between, right?
Well, there's a great scene, and you're right. There's a great scene if anybody's watched at least the first season of American Gods. If you could just go to YouTube, I'll see if I can post it in the Discord. In American Gods, there's the scene of your heart weighed against the feather, and basically one of the characters, Laura Moon, she suffocates herself with a rose. She huffs like bug spray in a hot tub, and she dies. And she's there. She's there with the feather, and Anubis is there, and they're going to do the whole thing. And there's a hot tub there, because that's like her sin was suicide. And the hot tub is there off in the scene. And she escapes him. Because she knows she's going to fail, so she escapes him. And it's because of love. I mean, you read the book, not the show, because the show trailed off into trash after like the second season, really. But in that first season, it describes those gods. It describes Odin and his crows or ravens. It has the gods of the Middle East. It has African gods in it. But there's a particular scene with your heart against the feather and getting weighed to get across. So I hope that's not what it is, because I think I'm going to be like 49% good and 51% evil.
I'll put in a good word for you for whatever I got. Whatever that means, I don't know what it means, but I'll send a good word, my friend.
I like to dip my feet in the devil's water, but I don't take a swim. That's the saying in the song.
Yeah, exactly. What song is that, by the way?
I think it's the Killers.
I was going to say, that's the Killers, isn't it?
The Killers.
It's the Killers. That's what I thought.
And the road, and the password for the road to do Shambay is from the movie Spies Like Us.
Oh, okay. All right, so it is from a movie that I have seen years and years. I knew it was like an old reference. Like once I've seen those movies, I forget. But yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it now. You're the best, brother. What else you got for us?
Oh, no, nothing much. From a funeral standpoint, knock on, I don't want to jinx it, but things are kind of slowing down, so it's in tune. And just be mindful of your neighbor. That's what I'm noticing. After 2 years of what we've all been through, try to be a little patient. I know I'm not. I know I can fly off the handle. I'm kind of a hothead. But be patient of your neighbor. Be patient of anybody, because we don't know what they're going through. Everybody's been stressed out, whether we realize it or not. I know I'm doing things less. I'm trying to get back on that saddle to get back out and do stuff. Like, I'm trying to get out to a show tomorrow night. So just be kind if you can. Reach out if you can. So
there you go. Great stuff. Appreciate it, my friend. You were the best, Joe in Florida. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you.
Have a good night.
Very soon. Thanks, Joe. Fantastic call. Good stuff from our resident. That's the Troubled Minds funeral director. Hopefully you don't meet him anytime soon, if you know what I'm saying. And of course, tongue in cheek there, making some jokes. This guy's got jokes. Still looking to hear from you guys. What do you think regarding this idea of, again, right? We started with this concept of the first ever recording of a dying brain has revealed we might relive some of our best memories in our last moments, right? And so we've heard this trope before with people describing that they've had a situation in a near-death experience where, your life flashes before your eyes, right? Well, in this case, we've got an individual that they were treating, 87-year-old man, they were treating for epilepsy, and they hooked him up to this machine, an EEG, and they were monitoring his brain. Well, unfortunately, he had a cardiac arrest, a heart attack, while this was happening, while he was hooked up to the brain machine. And so they were able to see over a 900-second period of exactly what was happening with his brain, right? And there was a a high level spike of activity. So pretty crazy. So 15 minutes around his death, it was recorded on the EEG. In the 30 seconds either side of the patient's final heartbeat, an increase in very specific brain waves were spotted. These waves, known as gamma oscillations, are linked to things like memory retrieval, meditation, and dreaming. This could mean, although many more studies will need to take place, we might see a sort of film reel of our best memories as we die. And that's one idea, but it got me thinking in terms of this Charon the boatman. And well, you know who that is. That's the Greek god of well, not really god. He's the boatman of the underworld, of the river Styx. When you pass on, you're supposed to bring him a coin, and he will ferry you across and deliver you to Hades, so you can remain there for all time. But, well, if you don't have the money, honey, you ain't getting across the river. And that's the part that gets to me regarding this. And it got me thinking in terms of, okay, so what about this brain situation that's going on, this spike in these gamma oscillations that's happening in the brain as you pass away on either side of the final heartbeat here? Well, there's an increase in brain activity. And what does it do? What's going on? Is it this moment of this maybe judgment or this handshake into, well, the transition? And that's what we're talking about tonight, and this idea of the river Styx. And is there a celestial gatekeeper of sorts? Love to hear your thoughts on this, near-death experiences or any of the rest. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. Simple as that. Hop in the Discord at troubledminds.org and put you on the show there. Let's see. Joe's a funeral director. Yep. No, not a secret. Open secret, I guess. What's up? Talking to you guys over on the fringe there. Catalina says, Beetlejuice, the old lady working in the cosmic waiting room, and the dead football man kept calling her coach. Hilarious. Yep, right. Good stuff. S Magician says, from most of the reads, the transition from this life to the next manifests differently for all. It must be a lesson to decipher. And Catalina adds, there are transitional angels that help the dead unless a soul gets trapped. And that's what we're talking about tonight. What's the idea here regarding celestial gatekeeping? And of course, Charon the boatman and the river Styx. We got a few minutes left if you want to jump in here and give us your take. Have you had a near-death experience? What have you read regarding this? And what do you think is actually going on with this gamma oscillation spike that happens just before and just after the final heartbeat? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And there's tons of stuff here, right? This is, again, from an article from Technical Ripon, R-I-P-O-N. And there's some good stuff here. And this is regarding the same article, right? But it's not the sun. And so the brain may make a final recall of important life events just before death, similar to those reported in near-death experiences, said American neurosurgeon Anjmal Zemar, one of the co-authors of this particular study. And he adds, we read this before, but one thing we can learn from this research is, although our loved ones have their eyes closed and ready to go to rest, their brains may be replaying some of the most enjoyable times they had experienced in their lives. And so this is one idea, but what are the rest of the ideas? I think that's what we're talking about here. If you go back to the sun, which is hilarious that they had exactly something similar way back in March of 2017. We're told to expect a white light or that your life will flash before your eyes. And a leading scientist thinks he's solved the terrifying mystery of dying and says that he can tell us exactly what happens in the 30 seconds before you pass away. And this is an older article, but let's see what this guy had to say. Neurologist Dr. Cameron Shaw dissected a woman's brain along with Vice magazine to find out what happened immediately before she died. Here's what he found. Because our brain's blood supply comes from underneath, the brain tends to die from the top down, claiming our most human characteristics first, Dr. Cameron said. Our sense of self, our sense of humor, our ability to think ahead, that stuff all goes within the first 10 to 20 seconds. Then, as the wave of blood-starved brain cells spread out, our memories and language centers short out until we're left with just a core. And so the idea here of the light in the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, let's see. He says, yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but that doesn't prove there's life after death. Is it God? Dr. Shaw wants to leave that up to people's own interpretations, which is a wise angle there, my friend. But he has a scientific reason for why it happens. Quote, We know from experience tunnel vision emerges abruptly when you suddenly lose blood supply to the brain, Dr. Cameron said. The first thing you notice is fainting. In fainting is the narrowing of vision followed by blackness. You could argue that's the way in which death would progress as well because the same mechanisms are in place, and it's an interruption of blood flow to the brain. So there you go. There's one scientist's take on what this is and what the final moment looks like, and he doesn't mention a gatekeeper at all. So what do you make of that? I don't know, but there's a ton of stuff here. I got near-death experiences we can get into as we go tonight and continue, but we got a few minutes left if you want to jump in here and give me your thoughts on this. Do you think it is possible there's some sort of gatekeeper, some sort of some entity like Car on the Boatman while waiting for his coin to ferry you across the river Styx, or do you think it's something else entirely? I don't know. I haven't seen American Gods or any of the rest of this stuff, so I'm behind the curve as usual, right? But okay, so a few minutes left. One more time, 702-957-1037 to put you on the show. And let's see, what else do we got here? This is from a paper from Missouri Medicine, and this is near-death experiences. Evidence for their reality, and this is pretty good stuff. Let's read just a little bit of this and finish this out, just to give you an idea of what some of the actual scientists say about this. Let's see. Catalina adds over on Fringe Discord: the living can trap a soul by not letting them go. S Magician says living hell is called the metaverse AR. Right. Here we go. This is from Missouri Medicine. Near-death experiences are reported by about 17% of those who nearly die. NDEs have been reported by children, adults, scientists, physicians, priests, ministers, among the religious and atheists, and from countries throughout the world. While no two NDEs are the same, there are characteristic features that are commonly observed in NDEs. These characteristics include a perception of seeing and hearing apart from the physical body, passing into or through a tunnel, encountering a mystical light, intense and generally positive emotions, a review of part or all of their prior life experiences, encountering deceased loved ones, and a choice to return to their earthly life. Right. So there we go. Again, this is a medical paper. This is actually kind of delving into this phenomenon of this whatever this is going on here with these near-death experiences. I'm going to link it in the chat if you guys want to check it out. Pretty fascinating, if you ask me. Read just a little bit more and we'll finish this up. Let's see. There is no uniformly accepted definition of near-death experience. Definitions with some variability have been used throughout the 35 plus years that NDEs being the subject of a scholarly investigation. For my retrospective investigations, an NDE was required to have both near-death and experience component. Individuals were considered to be near-death if they were physically compromised, that if their condition did not improve, they would be expected to irreversibly die. Near-death experiencers included in my investigations were generally unconscious and may have required cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The experience component of an NDE had to occur when they were near death. Also, the experience had to be reasonably lucid, on and on and on. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's fantastic that this is kind of being looked at by doctors and science and scientists and the rest of this. And, well, if you're going to look into something, it may as well be, why the hell not, Troubled Minds style stuff. Like, well, yep, near-death experiences. So as we finish this, we let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We're just about done here. That's the bad news. The bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we've got tomorrow. And if you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. And if you're listening to us on any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. And, well, if you want to help the show, there's a few ways to do that. You can support on Rockfin, straight through Twitch, Patreon. If you don't want to do that, if you want to listen to some old shows, just listen to the podcast feed. It kicks a few cents my way when you do that. I appreciate it very much. You can find the podcast, of course, on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. And thanks again to everybody for being part of this. Like I said, the most important thing is you spend your time and energy here. That's the most important thing. Spread the word. Old school word of mouth still works. We can beat the algorithms that way, grassroots style. But as we finish, it goes a little something like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. The buttons. Always the buttons. Press the buttons and other sounds happen. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. We're still talking about this. What do you think? What's the idea? We can get into Purgatory, Sheol. We can talk about Car on the Boatman. I'll talk a little bit about that because did you know the river Styx isn't the only river that travels through Hades? Yes, there are more. And there's all kinds of stuff. So whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about, we can do. And again, if you called once and you want to add some more information, that's what the third hour is for. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And we'll put you on the show. And of course, what we're going to do right now is take a 2-minute break. And we'll be right back with more Troubled Minds. Don't go anywhere. Still talking about this. And non-linear, open-ended, wherever you want to take it. Your theories, your near-death experience stories, Car on the Boatman, or maybe different rivers into Hades. Is there a back door? Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds on the way. Be right back. All right, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And we are now off the Fringe FM, which is digital radio. So well, if you want to drop an F-bomb here or there, well, you're more than welcome to. The third hour is for F-bombs and you. And that's why we do it, because it seems like sometimes we end up with a weird, some things left unsaid. So we kind of do a third hour. We don't have to. It's always kind of been a 3-hour show. So we got a 2-hour radio slot, so we do it kind of in radio format for the first couple. Third hour is just to kind of let our hair down a little bit and just let these conversations range wherever they will. So there you go. One more time, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Let's go to Daryl in New York. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. Go right ahead.
Hey, Michael. Great topic tonight. Very interesting. I wanted to share 2 stories that I heard that had me reconsider that DNR kind of thing, the do not resuscitate story.
Okay, sure.
One was a guy that was in a coma. The family was like, "Oh yeah, he's brain dead. I think we're going to pull the plug." And they're like, "No, not yet. They're like, "Okay, give it one more day." And his best friend had been coming in to see him like every day and shared a fishing story, hoping he would come to one day. And he told every day he went to visit him, he had no movement, but he could sit with his friend and tell his fishing story. Anyway, they were going to pull the plug the next day, and when they went into the room, he was sitting up in the bed, totally lucid, like as if nothing happened, didn't remember anything, didn't remember being sick. And when he saw his best friend, he goes, "By the way, I heard you every single day. I heard every word you said." And he repeated every fishing story he said. So here you go. The doctor's about to pull the plug. They say you're brain dead. And boom, you come back to like you weren't even sick. So I think people are a little bit rushed to judgment too fast to say somebody's brain dead. I don't think necessarily you could really be sure about that. I mean, there are people that have had no oxygen for like a half an hour. And they come back, totally normal, like they have drowned or something, and they finally get the water out of their lungs, but they had no oxygen, and they're totally fine. So I don't think we really know, like, when does that brain actually die. And another woman, there was another story. She was in the operating table, and she had, I guess, code, whatever that code is, code red. She had died on the operating table, and she recalls her experience. Her experience was just floating above the operating table, and then she started like leaving the hospital. She went out of a window, and then she recalled that she saw this funny thing outside the hospital as she was floating above the hospital. She went to a different wing, and she saw a funny pair of blue tennis shoes hanging outside of another hospital wing's window. And when she described the whole thing to the doctor, they had put those shoes there for a reason. And it was such there's no way she would have known those shoes were there if she hadn't floated above the operating room and out of body, because they had put they're in a different wing for another reason. They were doing some kind of study for near-death experiences, and that was one of their their scientific MO, to see if anyone would catch something like that. if they would be, it would be visible to somebody that had a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience. And she saw them. There was no way she would have been able to know that those blue tennis shoes was there.
Yeah, I've
so
heard this
when I
before.
heard that,
I think I think you've told this story before.
I did. Okay.
I think so. Maybe I heard it somewhere else. But so she was able to she levitated out of her body, and she was able to see these shoes that were put there for this particular purpose, right? Which is bizarre. That's which means, and I like where you're taking this too, in that. How do we really know at the point of what brain dead means? Like like when do you shut it off? When is it like? And that's why when I was reading the article the first time, and they're like, oh, this will help us with knowing when to take organs and things like this, and I'm like, ooh,
oh boy,
oh,
I'm telling you. And they take your eyes when you're still alive.
Ooh,
isn't that? Yeah, if you donate your organs, believe it or not, you're going to be a living donor, even though you're dying. So they keep you alive long enough to take out your organs. So I don't know if I'd like that part either. I think I'd rather do like a post-mortem donation if it was up to me. Take anything you want after death.
Yeah, right. But just make sure. Please just make sure.
Help yourself.
That's
yourself.
Super horrific. So what's your take on this? I'm sure you've heard of the river Styx and Car on the Boat Man. What about this idea of maybe a gatekeeper of sorts? That's maybe that judgment of the soul sort of situation. Do you think that's really what's going on here, or do you think I'm just spinning a tale on the interwebs?
Oh, I don't know. A lot of people believe you get a life review and you see your whole life, flashing before your eyes, or you get to feel all the feelings that you've ever doled out to other people. If you hurt somebody, you're going to feel their pain. You're going to go through all the, I guess you get your karma back. You get to relive all the good and bad things you've done in your life, or you get a life review, I don't know if there's a judgment day, that's kind of more of a religious dogma, I believe, I think you're going to get judged. Maybe you will, maybe there's a bunch of people. Remember Father Guido Sarducci? He said when you die, you have to pay for your sins. But really, you have to pay for your sins. Let's say, you lied in church. That's like 50 cents. This was back in the 70s,
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
You had a price for every little thing you did,
Right,
and,
right.
If you stole from the church plate, that's $1, and that adds up,
Heck yeah, it does.
Yeah, you have to really pay for your sins,
Heck yeah.
You better have some Bitcoin.
That sounds like a fantastic spiritual extortion to me.
You can imagine.
Yeah, right? I'll bet you he died a wealthy man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about this other idea of, what about purgatory, Sheol, whatever this is? So do you think there is maybe a waiting place, a transitionary spot, something like this, a waiting room per se, like a celestial waiting room? What about that idea?
I wonder. I've also heard something like when you get to get your soul, you get a newborn baby. So, even you don't get to inhabit a body until the baby's born. I've heard that one. And then the reincarnation theory, if the reincarnation does occur, how long do you hang out somewhere before you get that body? You know what I mean? And does it depend on how many births per year? What about if the population is being, culled, etc.? I don't know. Maybe there aren't going to be that many available bodies. What happens to all those souls? Are they in a waiting room? I don't know. Are there refreshments? I mean, is there entertainment?
Exactly. How long do I have to wait? Because I hate waiting. Mm-hmm. I totally hate waiting.
Hey, I'm waiting here. I was in line. Hey, get in line.
Exactly. Yeah, I was here first. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, right.
Who knows? Who knows?
No. I saw it first. I don't know. I wonder.
It's funny to think about. It's funny to think about anyway.
Yeah, I mean, how do you choose where you're going to reincarnate? Is it your choice either also, Is that your choice? I mean, people seem to say, oh, I chose to be here. I chose, maybe you choose a time, you choose an era, and then do you get to know all the history when you go back there? All that secret stuff, do you wind up knowing it all? Oh no, that reset and that reset. Oh shit. I don't want to come back, and be with those Schwabs again. I want to, I don't want to, if Bill Gates is there, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And then, you hear the story. Well, that's not Bill Gates. That's God. He just thinks he's Bill Gates.
Shit. No. No. Robert wants you to know over on Rockfin, yes, Daryl, there are refreshments. Maybe juice and chocolate chip cookies.
All right. I'll have a double.
I'll have a double. Hell yeah. Spike mine, please. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. What else you got for us? We got Matt and James behind you. So let's get your final thought, and then you're welcome
Let's hear
to stay.
from them.
Okay.
No, let's hear from them. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, you good?
I got it out.
Okay,
Yeah, let's hear from James and Matt.
Sounds
okay.
good. Thank you so much for the phone call. Daryl in New York has a YouTube channel. Check it out. Let's give her some love. Go down and scroll down. Link is in the description. She sings in French and English. Thank you very much for the phone call, Daryl. You're the best. And stay right there. Go ahead and mute up. Stay right there, and we'll get back to you if you got the time later. Okay.
You got it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the call. All right. So Seth, we're still talking about this. What do you think? The idea of this celestial gatekeeper, I kind of run a little wild with this idea of Charon, the boatman, the river Styx. When they passed away in the old days, they would put a coin in their mouth so that when they encountered this, they would have the currency to pay Charon, the boatman. He would take them across the river Styx into Hades, where their soul would reside forever. And again, Hades is, it's an ancient idea. It's not like hell. It's not the judgment. It's just where all the souls went. So what are your thoughts here? Is there some sort of gatekeeper similar, not maybe Charon the boatman himself, but something similar? Do you think there's an idea of maybe a barrier between here and there, and you have to know the password or pay the toll or go into the light or not go into the light or know the secret handshake or whatever it is? I don't know. The secret knock. You tell me. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link, troubleminds.org. Let's go to Matt in California. What's up, my friend? Welcome to Trouble Minds. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Doing well. Just talked about crazy shit on a random Wednesday. You know how we do, man.
Yeah, I think it's the article was really interesting to me, how they got that guy's, how they caught it on the EKG machine. Hopefully that can help with science.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, like we were saying, that they learn something so they don't, start taking organs a little too early, because that's horrifying. That's not a great thought.
Yeah, and maybe, too, it will help like some skeptics understand that there is something going on here.
Yeah, I think so. I think pretty much no matter how you slice this, there's something afoot, something going on with this. So what's your theory regarding all the rest of the stuff we're talking about tonight?
I just wanted to talk about the gods and they call them psychopomps or psychopompus, that they're the carriers that carry you across to the other side. Okay, and perfect. So what I was going with it is, we talk often about if you guys know what archetype is. An archetype of a god is like, it's the same energy but a different face throughout like history and culture. And so thinking about all the gods that take you across, you have in Egypt, it's Anubis, and his test for it's the goddess Maat, M-A-A-T, her test of weighing your heart against a feather. And I guess it's the more bad things you do in this life, the more heavier your heart is. And so that's what judges you to go across, if you go to heaven or if you go to somewhere else or a waiting place. And then they have the boatman in the Greek mythology. And then we have modern time, we have the Grim Reaper. And also another one I was going to forget too is the Valkyries. The Valkyries in Norse mythology, they take warriors to Valhalla. So it's like a special, a special heaven that only warriors can go to. But it's like only a Valkyrie could take you there. And that's only if you die in battle.
So many rules, man. So many rules, man.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering if it's just, with all these different stories, I wonder if it's the same thing, just different stories being told through different cultures and different time periods.
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like no matter what story you're talking about, there does seem to be this idea that you can't just cross whatever that barrier happens to be. In this case that I've been talking about tonight, the river Styx. But like you're describing Valhalla with the Valkyries or whatever else, you needed some entity, something to be able to take you, right? To take you there. You can't just pull your boots up and stomp your way in, right? There needs to be some sort of process. Like I said, rules, so many rules, right?
Yeah, it's super interesting. As of course, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're just speculating anyway. So do you think though there is some sort of a gatekeeper though? What about that idea? Is it the judgment moment? You think that happens in that situation when people actually pass on?
What I believe is that the judgment thing is more of a life review. It's basically your life flashes before your eyes. And so it's basically kind of showing you, all the rights and wrongs you did, all the good things you did or bad things you did, and kind of giving you it all at once. You see it flash before your eyes. That's what I believe about the judgment thing. But I definitely do believe that there is some sort of psychopomp or some sort of entity that is, someone's there waiting to guide you. You can't just, like you said, you can't just row the boat across yourself.
Yeah, like it's not allowed. There is a barrier of sorts, and you have to be able to know something to get through, or have help some way. Pretty wild stuff.
A lot of places, like the underworld place that has a guard dog, right? Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog. So you can't just walk in. There's a guard.
Exactly, and the immortal 3-headed dog of the underworld that keeps people out, or also rather keeps them in as well.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to run into Cerberus.
Yeah, no, that's probably a bad move there. Again, right? But again, so I think Karin the boatman lets you through, gives the wave to the dog, the 3-headed dog lets you in, right? It's fine. Like he's cool, he's with me, right? But if you sneak in the back way, oh boy, that's like a bad idea. So what else with this regarding near-death experiences and this other stuff? What else you got for us, my friend?
I just think that these stories, I always say these stories come from somewhere. Someone, this happened. So these stories came from something. So I don't know if it's a warning. Are they trying to warn us? Are they trying to help us, guide us? Are they, what it is? But I definitely believe in something there. So I'm in with that.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. I dig it. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to talk about the gods, and so I said I think that it could be all the same.
Yeah, like it's been going on for a long time, just all the different names with the archetypes. I love it, man. Yeah. That's exactly what we're doing.
Good show tonight. Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. That's Matt in California, a friend of mine. Very, very good stuff, as always. Still taking your phone calls. What do you guys think? This idea of a gatekeeper. And is it, like Matt said, there's an archetype of this, right, that goes kind of throughout history in different religions and pantheons of the ancient gods. And it seems to be a thing, right? You can't really just, like I said, strap up the boots, stomp into heaven, and demand what's yours, right? Or, whatever, quote, heaven happens to be. Let's say heaven's too charged. Let's call it the afterlife. You can't just stomp into the afterlife and demand what's yours. All right, there's some rules. There's some situations going on. What those are, well, it's unclear. But that's why we're talking about this stuff. Because why not? Let's continue talking about it. One more time: 702-957-1037. Thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Matt. Let's go to James. James in Missouri. Well, not Missouri. Knucklehead me. James in Michigan. Welcome to Troubled Minds, my friend. How are you?
How did I get to Missouri?
I don't know, bro. You're all over the damn place. I can't even keep track of you anymore, James.
Oh, man. Great topic. Great calls tonight. All of them.
Thank you. It is embarrassment of riches, all the amazing people that call into the show, for sure. So including you. What you got for us? You said you had a laundry list here.
Yeah, a few thoughts here. And, of course, as always, the reason I mentioned the calls is there's been a few here tonight, that added to that list in a way. So the first thing, I guess, would be with that article, with the brain, the scan. I think that's really interesting that they mentioned the idea that this person was basically it was connected to dreams. These last scans could have been connected to dreams. because just from all the experiences I've read about and some of my own, there are some interesting things and possibly paranormal things or things that are more than just us in dreams. I think for me that's safe to say. So I wonder if that, more of these studies over time, I don't know if they would explain that, but I'm interested to see if anything else ever happens to hint at that more. And again, that mentioning, I think it was Matt and you, the idea of the skeptics. I would love to see where this goes and what how far it goes with people that maybe don't believe in anything other than the material world, and see what happens. Just where the conversation goes in general.
Yeah. It is weird that sort of this idea that the brain sort of goes into overdrive at in the final moments. That there's something happening, right? I mean, there's something clearly, obviously happening, but what exactly that is again, they say that the DMT releases into the brain and sort of begins that lucid dreaming sort of state where it's where it is you're kind of in between realms, right? Maybe sort of like you just described, sort of a dreaming sort of experience, but then what? Then what, right? Because I mean, it's surely like some people say, well, if the light goes off and that's that, it's a wrap. But I'm not so sure, because there's brain activity for sometimes hours after death, right? Depending on the situation. So I don't know. There's some weirdness to this. What do you think about the idea of that gatekeeper? What about Beetlejuice? Apparently, there's some. I'm seeing some comments about Beetlejuice. How does that play in? You probably know that movie quite a bit better than I do.
Yeah, that's my favorite movie of all time, which I know to some people, that may sound strange, but that's okay. But part of what I found so interesting about that movie, and we won't stay totally on that subject for long, but the idea of this basically this office complex in the afterlife, and I wonder if there is just one or if there are several all around the world. Because part of the reason I say that is different people, when they have either near-death experiences, but also people who have dreams about, where they feel that's more than just a dream, they find themselves in various versions of waiting rooms or buildings or even open spaces, but where there are, I've heard of picnic tables, and there's people walking around and people meeting each other and then leaving, and it just makes me wonder if the dreams can be, in some cases, a connection to that other dimension. Is it? I don't know. Where there are certain areas that are set aside, again, who sets them aside? I don't know. For these connections, this connection between the living and the dead. And I've even heard stories, because my thing is, I don't look into a lot of the mythology because there's just so much. I look more into people's stories or experiences they've had. And one thing that will happen sometimes is they'll have a dream about being in one of these places, and someone will come up to them, and it seems like a regular person, but they'll say, "You're not supposed to be here right now."
Yeah, right.
And
you're so this you go somewhere else, right? This is not your thing. Meaning that there is a gatekeeper, right? Somebody is saying, "Hey, no, no, go the other way," right?
Yeah, and then in some cases, there's even that while this is happening, and again, these are all just based on stories I've heard and read, the person in the dream will see a loved one in that area, though. And they'll be allowed by whoever is there to visit with this person, their loved one, for a little while, and then have to end the meeting, and everything starts to fade, and they come back too. And into this world, and so it's just really interesting, this whole connection, and it's just so funny how you're doing the show, and we've talked a little bit about this a couple nights ago, I believe it was, and it's just interesting that this is kind of popping up right now.
Yeah, and you got Beetlejuice scheduled on Friday with Jennifer as well, eh?
Yes. Just because that's my favorite show or favorite movie, and we were talking about doing a show together at some point, and yeah, it's going to be fun.
Nice. And the crazy part about all this too, I love the idea you described as, well, if there's like this sort of celestial waiting room for the transition, the crossover from life to the afterlife, then is it the only waiting room? Or are there more? And right, where are they located? And right, the rest of this, like what happens, like we talked about a while back when we did a show together here on Troubled Minds about, in a cataclysmic event, what happens to all these overflow souls? Do they have to expand the room? Do they go to different places? The train station, remember we talked about that? There's some wild things here that kind of go through some of these stories, right?
Yeah, and it makes me wonder now about some of those empty places that are empty most of the time. If maybe those aren't some kind of those buildings aren't used as waiting rooms, and some of the activity that people experience there when they're alone, or there's only 2 or 3 people in this entire, take your pick at a sports stadium or a church, a religious site, or empty, like the industrial site. And this is just something that just came to me now, is if maybe these buildings, they're not empty, they're being used as these way stations. Maybe even certain parks where no one, you hear about that, no one likes to go into that park or that forest because people get weird feelings there. They don't, and they hear things there and see things there. Maybe those are waiting areas, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, good stuff. What's up, Marcio? M from Canada says in the chat, yes, I think there's a gatekeeper, and if it's not your time, they will tell you can come back. They will tell you when you can come back when the time is right. So yeah, interesting. So we're not even talking about maybe the transition, this gatekeeper idea of the transition from life to afterlife, but then also that if it's not your time, maybe it's a time sequence thing where like again, waiting in the train station, right? Like we were saying, hope there's refreshments, like Daryl was saying, right? Like, how long do I have to wait?
Yeah, or do you even need refreshments? What are you at that point?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How does your perception manage that? If you think of yourself as still somewhat alive, do you feel like you need, refreshments? Do you? There's again, as always, these things. There's just so many questions that come up. But and I think so. Those were the things. And I like the other thing about that idea of these different mythologies. I wonder, in the cases where there's different ones all around the world, and now I'm wondering, maybe they are talking about possibly experiences people have had, or possibly real things are happening. And it's not all one thing. It's surrounds each individual area. Maybe that's why there's these different ones. So for each area of the world has its own story because that's what it's like for them there.
Okay, interesting. I like it. I like this stuff because it's like Matt was saying too, with the archetypes of like these gatekeepers throughout history. It seems like there might be something to this, right? In that we're just kind of hip firing some ideas out and chugging some maybe juice, but it does seem that there's a basis in some reality here with some of the stories you hear people tell with these near-death experiences, the light, like it's not your time, things like this, right? So I wonder. No idea, man. No answers here for me, but seems strange. What is that scene in Beetlejuice? It's been so long since I've seen that movie, I can't really remember. So they were, what are they doing? They're waiting sort of in purgatory? Explain that scene to me. Pretty please.
Okay, so this was a little bit into the movie, but at this point, two of the main characters have already passed on, but they're confused because they don't remember the time in between their deaths and them basically arriving back at their house, which also again leads to that possible idea of there being individual places. But anyway, so they find this handbook for the recently deceased. And that was kind of the source of my joke earlier about, there being this rule book, but it reads like stereo instructions.
Oh, I see.
That's actually a line from the movie.
Okay.
But, and at some point in the movie, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they can't figure out the book, so they find a reference in the book of how to get to this afterlife office area. And they get there, and it's they're basically told, what are you doing here? Didn't you read the book? But what they have to do once they get there is, because they didn't have an appointment, because they didn't know how to make an appointment, they have to take a number and wait so long. Until,
of course, it's like the DMV
specialist.
That makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Until their caseworker can meet them. And interesting enough, they're eventually led out of that waiting area and further into this office complex, and they go through a door and they're back in that house. And everything looks different. And I'll just end this here in a second. But they're wondering what happened because everything in the house looks different. And they actually ask, how long do you think we were gone? And their caseworker is there. It's an older woman. And she says, 3 months. I was wondering when you were going to get here. But for them, it did not feel like 3 months. So it's
like minutes or hours, something like that.
Yeah. So this whole idea of time, what is time like in this other dimension? You hear that all the time about that idea that maybe spirits don't always experience time the way we do. And that could be why they seem so confused when people encounter them in different places. It could be because there's some kind of time difference there, and you don't even seem normal to them because time is going at a different rate for them.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing too. With you have the two different times, and that there's that scene with Gandalf when he passes away in with the Balrog, right? He gets beaten down by the Balrog. He wins the fight, but he succumbs to his injuries. You Lord of the Rings fan? You know what I'm talking about?
I never made it through the books, and I never got to the movies. But sorry, do I have to leave now? I can leave now.
Get out, James. Get out. No,
okay.
I'm just kidding. You're fine. No, so he describes as sort of a passing on into like timeless time, sort of a time and space as it just into forever, into like this eternity of forever, where you just wait and everything's peaceful and calm, but then boom, he was brought back. It's like he never describes like maybe encountering a gatekeeper as such, but it's like he takes a breath and he wakes up and he's alive again and put back in a human body. And pretty wild stuff though. That's the whole essence of what you were just describing with the way time works separately for like a spiritual entity versus just time on Earth, right? Which makes perfect sense, by the way. I mean, if spirits aren't affected by gravity, well, the gravity and time space and relativity and all the rest of that makes perfect sense that time just wouldn't be the same to them, does it?
Well, one other interesting thing about that movie is there's this aspect of the spirits can change their size, like they can shrink down to basically there is this it's like a physical model of the town that this house is set in. And different characters in the movie actually, at different times, end up in that model. So they're basically, they're super tiny, basically. They're the size of this model, walking around and moving around in this model of this town. So that makes you wonder, does that in that form, are they more powerful there? Does time go different there as well? You know, if you can change your perspective on everything, you know, to where you're really small, then what does that do? You know, or maybe you don't. Maybe in some cases you can't affect that. Maybe, you know, that's what some orbs. In some cases, they're literally, that's how big they are. You know, even down to the really tiny ones. So that's another thing about that. That's interesting. And who knows if they can be that small, it'd be pretty easy to be wherever, you know, whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of talked about that idea too with extraterrestrials and whatnot. If they were like super freaking tiny, they could be here all over the place, and we just never find them. Crazy stuff. Yeah, wild. What else you got? What else you got for us, James?
Okay, I'm just going over this list of things I had here. So I mentioned the dream thing. I mentioned I think that's basically it. I'd love to stay and just react to whatever anyone else says, though, from here on out, if it'd be okay.
Sure, of course.
I'm curious to hear what everyone says. So that's a great topic.
Sure, of course. Absolutely. Stay right there. This is James in Michigan. He's a podcaster. He's got a podcast called Salcedo Paranormal. He goes 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, and he does them live, records them live at 8 p.m. Eastern, so 5 p.m. Pacific. So check it out. Join our friend James. Go download the podcast. Go listen. Go join the Discord. I'll get his Discord link here and put it in the chat in a sec as well. But thanks, James. Appreciate it. Great stuff as always. He's a good friend of mine. Hang tight. We'll be back with you in just a moment. And let's go to Kelly in Colorado. What's up, Kelly? Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you, my man? You're on with James, and I think Daryl's still here.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. How about you? What's your idea here regarding this idea of a gatekeeper? I know we've talked in the past a little bit about this, and you had an experience, which your near-death experience, which kind of mirrored that of Gandalf, which we're kind of talking about with James there just a second ago. But go ahead. What are your thoughts here?
Well, about the story about how they are recording that, when the guy died. That was it kind of didn't surprise me. It kind of reminds me of, like we talked about before, was the Higgs boson, right? Is when matter or energy turns into matter, right? So that also actually happens, when they recorded when the egg of a female egg accepted a male sperm, they said it's like a miniature explosion, right? Everything lights up like just kind of like I believe the egg, they said it had like a shine, it just like an explosion, like a little light, and that's kind of like so this what they just had, what they're recording, they're thinking that it's a flash, maybe the man seeing his life flash before his eyes, which is a possibility, but it's just the Higgs boson in reverse. It's just when you're crossing the veil back over, it's the same thing. The explosion would happen of something, bright like that. It's kind of, the energy is doing a transfer from both, being alive and then, I guess, the body dying and then, the energy going back to where its natural self. But, yeah, the whole gatekeeper thing, too, is pretty interesting. It's not only talked about in different, like how you guys are talking about in different cultures and stuff, but yeah, one was, a lot of books I've ran across, like for instance, and the Emerald Tablets, he talks about that too, but he says there's two of them. There's two gatekeepers for each realm that he had visited. But, and then on the far end, that's when he said that's where the hounds of, I guess, I don't know if he would say the hounds of hell, but the hounds would actually, they're like some type of gatekeeper of the whole, I guess, the whole universe or something. The way he explains it is if you ever hear the hounds and the bell, like a bell tolling in the background, to get back to your body. And that's even actually if you're doing an out-of-body experience, kind of like traveling like he was doing. There's rules and limits to doing some of that stuff as he explains in his book. So, yeah, but that's pretty interesting that they did find that. I was always wondering about that too, because, what going in reverse, like the Higgs boson, it's just, that's where I see it as in the science perspective anyway.
Yeah. Good point with the when the egg and sperm meet, that like explosion of life, right? That spark. They have that's been confirmed for quite a while now, and so you're right. Maybe you've talked about the Higgs field and how energy, when it passes through it becomes matter. Well, if it's the same thing, it's energy not really dissipating. It's changing again form. It's changing. The energy within us becomes something else. So, yeah, wild stuff. I love it, man. I love it. The gatekeeper too, like Matt was saying, that archetype of the gatekeeper, it seems to be prevalent pretty much through anything, anywhere. It's like I said, you can't just strap on your boots and stomp into the afterlife. There's a process, right? Like you have to be able to do whatever these rules are, like that, back to the Beetlejuice handbook, right? Something like that. How to get there, right, is kind of the question. Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. So with my experience, I didn't see any. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I can actually visually see that, but all I did remember just closing my eyes, and then I didn't want to see myself being sick again. When I was being sick, so when I was in the restroom. But yeah, the crossover, it was no flat. I know for me there wasn't anyway. For my experience, it was just in my eyes closed, and next thing you know, when I opened my eyes, just to see again, look down towards the toilet. I could see my body. I was like, my body was laying on the ceiling, the roof, the ceiling of the room. It was weird, man. I don't know. But then going out, so I don't know, maybe listening to this, some of these people's, comments and stuff, but what was interesting was like, maybe it wasn't for me to, cross over, but I crossed over the veil. That's where I'm kind of seeing it as, if you're going back and forth, like being born or, dying, it'd be like crossing over through the veil, whatever that means in other terms, right? But yeah, I mean, for me, when I did that, and it was it was crazy, man. But obviously it wasn't like, people say it wasn't your turn or something. But when you come back, I don't know if it's a sense of like, you come back and you have more, I don't know if you'd say power or like you gain more knowledge by doing so when you come back, with something, because I don't know if I told you the finishing story about how that happened.
Not that I can recall. Go ahead.
All right. So I don't know if I have, but okay. So I'm going to say it anyway. I told my brother about this. When I was stationed in San Diego, and he had never came out to San Diego to visit me. I mean, his wife finally did, just then without the kids, so it was just adult time, right? But I proceeded to tell him this story because he was there. We shared the same room, and I told him the story, right, about how I died and I came back and what it was like, right? And he's sitting there looking at me, and then he tells me, "Yeah, I remember that night." He goes, I was kind of worried about you, so I was awake, when you got up to go to the bathroom, because I heard you sick in there. And he goes, "But you came back." He goes, "I remember you came back and you laid down on your bed." He goes, "And then you just stood up." And he goes, "You stood up and you started spinning in circles slowly, right? And then your arms raised out. Like kind of like, I guess, what Jesus had with their head out to my side, about shoulder length. And all of a sudden I just started spinning faster and faster." And he goes, "Then he started speaking a language I've never heard in my life." He goes, "I've never heard it before, and I've sent him, like stuff from YouTube of like ancient, languages, like Sumerian, Egyptian, all the ancient languages, each one how they would sound. And he's like, nah, it wasn't any of those. But he said I started spinning around and started speaking that language. And he goes, and then then you like lost your balance and you landed on my bed. He goes, so I kicked your ass off. He goes, I kicked you off my bed to your other side. He goes, it scared the shit out of me because I didn't know what to do. So I just hadn't watched. He goes, then he just got up and laid back down and went to sleep.
That's super wild. Holy smokes! So you were kind of channeling something, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, man. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it was weird, man. After that, it was just, I don't know. From that time, I would say is like when I had more perspective of different stuff. It was like I started seeing different stuff. I could probably see stuff more than I would say, more than I would not regular people, but other people. And that's when I started really seeing like more of like oddities, man. That was where it came into my life, I guess. So that were some stories I've talked about. Seeing more like what people would call UFOs, and not just one, different types, different shapes. I don't know, man. After that, that's when I seemed to her like, I don't know, the remembrance of what it was different, man. I don't know. I came back different, I guess, I think. And that's my perspective and that was my experience is what I kind of want to put out first too, that was weird, man. But again, going back to that, it was like, I don't know, man, when it would be the crossover, I don't even know if that you've died. That's the interesting part. Because when I wouldn't even really known if I hadn't seen my body. What was weird about it was when I finally realized that, like, I'm laying on my ceiling, and then I passed through it, like through the building. Then I could see like the building I lived in, the surrounding area, like I was pulling away, So like I already know the whole area where we lived behind this junior high school, and I could see all the baseball field and everything, the top of it, the Maverick on the corner, all the street lights. I mean, I could tell you the exact. It was fucking weird, man. I don't know.
It's so some things stick, don't they? Some things absolutely stick. Yeah, that's nuts. So you didn't actually experience this idea of a gatekeeper, though. There were no entities that you can really describe.
No, what I seen was like what we talked about before. Is kind of like I don't remember what I know what time it was. Like where we talked about this, everybody it was kind of like the vastness, It was just I don't remember any different other cultures or like it was just me in the vastness of everything. Really, so it was like space to me, It looked like space. That's why I don't know if I'm so interested going back. Like I feel like the need to go back, but it was weird, man, because it was like it was all a space, but it was everything. But it seemed to be nothing, but it was everything at the same time. That if I can explain it that way, like flying through, it was like weird. It was like almost. I know I was moving in a certain direction, which was away from this, what we would call the solar system of us. But then it was like I could see distant stars, and then after that it was different planets. And then it got to a point where everything just stopped, and then it just went into reverse. Slowly at first, but then it started moving faster. So my direction away from my body was slower. That's what was so crazy about it. It seemed like it was like a long time, from what all the stuff I seen. And then when I come back, it was just like a split second. It was crazy because but I don't know how long I was there but when I woke up, I guess I fell over and hit the side of my, the tub, those old tubs. I hit the side of it and I had a bump on the side of my head, when I looked in the mirror, I had a bump on there. And so my brother too, he explains that he said you were in there for a minute. He goes, and that's when I didn't hear anything, you know. I heard you being sick, then I didn't hear you for a while. So that's when I was going to get up and go see if you're all right. And that's where our stories interchanged. And when he finally told me what I did after that, you know, when I came back to the room, I don't know, man. That's the point of my life where after that everything seemed different. Like
they say, the cleansing of the soul with like some kind of fire, right? Like that's that. Yeah. Why crazy stuff? So you felt like you did come back different then? Yeah, actually, yes. Because I don't know, man. Like I had when I was younger, for me as a kid, I liked a lot. I loved math. For me, math was easy. And as a matter of fact, that's when I told you about that story. I got in trouble at the school. My teacher thought I was cheating. She thought I like stole a book, and you know, because I would hardly miss anything, right? And she thought I was cheating all the time, like on tests or whatever. She was doing the problem and showing us how to do the problem already, right? And we had our textbooks in front of us, and she was teaching us the chapter. All she did is show me once, and I went through the whole thing while she was talking. And when she sat down, I set my paper on her desk, and that's where I got in trouble. She's like, you know, I got punished for being too smart, I guess. And then, that was like that was elementary, you know, like coming out of elementary into junior high. And then my experiences when I was in junior high, it was probably like, I don't know, 8th grade or something is when I had my experience. And then after the experience, it was like, I don't know, man. It's like a loss of something, but a gain of another thing. It's like, if it seems weird like that, I don't know, man. It's a different feeling. I suppose, if you want to put it that way. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like a burning desire to do something. And mine is to like go back to outer space or whatever the hell that was. Like home or whatever, right? So weird. Wonder if that's where we all started.
It was the most strangest encounter in my total existence was to see that, you know. I don't know, man. It was
pretty wild. So with the math story, so when you came back after the experience, were you different mathematically? Were you able to be fast like that, or did you lose that somehow?
I think I lost that because, I mean, I enjoyed it, but you know what? It felt like to me every time I got into some more deeper math, it was like, you know, it almost like it was a nuisance. You know what I mean? It was such a nuisance that I didn't even want to look at numbers. Because at the time, I loved them. When I looked at numbers, they just came easy. Everything just, you know, flowed, you know? It was like, I don't know, man. It was just, I could just see it. And then after my incident, it was, I couldn't, like, I hated them, man. It was just like, I tried, you know, like, I wanted, you know, because I had to pass classes and shit, you know? But it was more of a struggle. It wasn't as easy to see whatever I was, you know, the number flow. That's how I could see it. Because that's what it kind of like, it felt to me. Because it was, after that, it was more, man, it was like, you know, I think it was like, I loved it so much at one time, but when I came back, it was like, the love for it was like, I got punished, you know, and I didn't want to have to go through that again. So that was one of them, and it was weird too. I don't know, man. And then after that, it seemed, I don't want to get into too much of this. I'd have to explain this one to you when we meet.
Okay, but that's fine. I understand.
But yeah, other than that, man, it's a trip, man. I don't know. I like I said, it's kind of hard to roll it off the tongue. You know what I mean? To try to explain it because it was the vividry was amazing. I don't know. But like, what tripped me out is when my brother told me, you know, because I don't remember that it was like, I remember getting up and looking myself in the mirror because I was like, what the hell, you know, and I grabbed my face, you know, I washed my mouth out, you know, kind of like, washed my face off. And then as soon as I looked up in the mirror, man, I seen that knot, and I was like, what the fuck, man? And that's all I remember. And then I went back I don't even remember opening the door, walking out of the room, going down to our room, and then laying down. I don't remember any of that.
That's pretty wild. Like the true out of body experience, missing time and the whole bit, man. That's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. James is still here. Anything for Kelly, James, with that story or comments there?
Yeah, well, I guess two things. One is I would say, I wonder if there are some experiences, maybe like what you had, Kelly, where I guess what I'm getting to is maybe there are only so many of these gatekeepers, for lack of a better word or more accurate word. Maybe there wasn't one nearby when this happened to do anything. Or maybe, this is probably the crazier idea, but when you came back to Earth, Kelly, maybe that wasn't even caused by you. Maybe that was one of the gatekeepers.
Sending you back.
Yes. That's an idea. Again, I don't know. But that's an idea. The other thing I did want to mention is that's not uncommon for people to have a lot more experiences with high strangeness or the paranormal after a near-death experience, or even just after intense dreams. I believe I've heard of that too. Paranormal dreams, where they have, things happen in their dreams, and then that starts to kind of, I don't know about escalate, but more things start to happen here and there. They become more aware of things. So that does track.
Anything there, Kelly? Still there?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been where there was a gatekeeper and pushed me back, because when I was, like I said, going away from my body, like I said, it was a slower process to me, because like I said, it seemed like it took a while, because I seen what I seen was, you know what I mean? It took a while. So like get out of our, like I said, like it seemed like our solar system, because from the books that we, or science, they show us what Jupiter, Saturn with the rings, Uranus, and then Pluto, and then after that, it was like nothingness. And then it was like I came to another, I guess the outer parts of another one, solar system, because they were different planets, different stars. And then it was just like an abrupt stop. Boom. Not where I hit a wall and like I kind of like smashed up against anything. It just, I stopped. Then I felt myself like in the vision of I'm looking at, if you're saying looking at your eyes, the vision I seen is me slowly turning around and then going the other direction. But it was that slow at first, but then it started speeding up. So everything was moving faster. And by the time I got to like, I guess our solar system, where I could see, all right, here comes Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the belt, boom. Next, I seen the planet Earth, right? Then I seen darkness of like all the cities' lights lit up, because this was like at night. And then next, I started coming closer. I seen the United States, and then it was, this was in, my town, and then boom. And that's when I got up. I woke up with my eyes closed again, and dry heaving, and then I opened my eyes and I looked around. That's when I was like, that actually scared me being alive again, because I was like, fucking, I know I was dead, because I seen myself lying on the goddamn ground, you know what I'm saying? And then leaving, and then seeing all that, and then coming back, and then actually visually seeing all that happening, and then, boom, it was a flash. It was like dark. We went to darkness, but it was like as soon as I hit it, like it was, I guess you would say like the roof of the apartment building, that's when the flash happened. It was darkness, and then a flash happened, and then boom, I woke up breathing just like that, fucking, like you're saying, we were talking earlier, like Gandalf, example, a deep breath, and I pushed myself away from the toilet, looking around like I was scared, man. That shit scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I'll bet. I got that clip here. I finally found it. I don't know why it's so damn hard to find, but we played this last time Kelly told this story because it reminded me exactly of this. And this is Gandalf after he smote the ruin of the Balrog on the mountainside, which is an amazing quote there. But this is him describing something very similar to what Kelly experienced in that near-death experience. In this case, Gandalf, again from Lord of the Rings, fictional, of course, etc., he actually ended up dying as a result of his battle with this Balrog, this demon and from the ancient world. And listen to what he says. Let me know. I'm going to play a little bit of this. Let me know if you guys can hear this real quick. I'm talking. I know the stream can hear it, but I'm talking to Kelly and James. Let me know if you can hear this real quick, and then if you can, I'll play the rest.
Thought and time.
Did you hear that?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So here's exactly what this was, a very similar parallel to what the story Kelly was telling in his experience. And I played this last time he told this because it blew Kelly's mind a little bit. Let's play this, and this is kind of exactly what he's describing, but through Gandalf. So here we go.
Darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time. The stars wheeled overhead. And every day was as long as a life age of the earth. But it was not the end. I felt life in me again.
I've been sent back until my task is done.
Okay, there we go. That's man, that scene always gives me the chills. Crazy stuff. Where every day was as long as what do you say, the life age of men,
the world,
of the world. Yeah. So crazy. But yeah, wow. It makes me want to go watch Lord of the Rings again. Yeah. But all right, so you guys know we're kind of at the end here, so we can wrap this up. But I don't want to cut you off. Your thoughts here, Kelly, on that or any of the rest of this regarding gatekeepers or anything else? Anything else you want to share with us?
I just wanted to say real quick was that you should have been in my pants or in my shoes when the first time I heard him say that when I was watching it in the movie theater. Man, and that's just like all echoing and loud and shit, man. And as soon as he started saying that shit, I was like having flashbacks to my moment. I was like, what the hell?
It's like they stole it from you.
Yeah, it explains it, like how he says darkness took him, and that's how it was. It was like, but then you seen the stars, and it was like I said, the feeling of it all seemed, you could see it was nothingness or a vastness of nothingness, but stars. But then it was like, but everything was everything at the same time. I don't know how to like. Everything was like full, you know what I mean? Your heart was full, you know what I mean? That's what it felt like. Like your knowledge was full. Everything is like, even it felt like it was weird. I don't even know how to say that, but it was like, because I know I was dead, right? But at the same time, you feel like you have a body. I don't know, like still the shape of the body, because it was brand new, like just leaving my body. But that's what it felt like, that I could feel the space on my skin. That's how weird it was. That's what I'm saying. The feeling, it was so, oh man, I don't know. It was, yeah, but go back to the other question was, I don't know, man, the whole thing about like with the Guardians, I don't know, man. You could see, I don't know, man. I couldn't say what I seen, it wasn't, but like the feeling that I had was something that stopped me or something. You know what I mean? So it could be. And again, like I said, again, for everybody, it was my experience, and that's just what happened to me. But yeah, it's pretty strange, man. Because if you look at even like I look at other religions, another one that's kind of different is the Mormons, right? When they see in the past, they like have different, when they die, they have like different levels of heaven and stuff. They believe like there's different, and you can actually, I guess if you have, if you're a true, to their heart when you die or something, that, you can even become a god of your own realm or whatever. It's a trip if you ever read on their religion. It's pretty crazy.
Lots of stuff pretty crazy in this world, man. Truth is stranger than fiction, huh? Always the best, Kelly. I appreciate you sharing your story with us again here. And interesting that still, right, even with like a first-hand account, it's still difficult to have all the answers. Some of it was foggy, some of it, like the time dilation, just some weirdness to this that, I guess we really won't know, will we? We really can't know all the answers. And like I always say, I'm okay without knowing, and that's fine by me. Anything else for us, my friend, while we got you here?
No, man, that's it. I just wanted to kind of actually just, add that point to where, there, with the story though, with the flash and stuff like that, where, it was like I said, it could be the crossing of the veil, what I call it. Like you're passing through, going back and forth, because I actually, even science now is backing everything, that most, like ancient, I guess you would say religions, or just the way people thought life was, of how, even like what you said, talking about like with the river system, everybody talks about, but the whole thing to me was interesting with boats, and like, you can go from Egyptian to, all the way to the, Vikings, and, they put them with boats, or they die with boats, or, they bury boats with them, or, stuff like that. You find that in many other different cultures, but yeah, and some people like to claim that it's where the Milky Way looks like like a river, flowing through the cosmos, which is actually pretty awesome if you ever sat and watch it, like maybe in a desert area or something away from the lights and stuff. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, that's I don't know, man, and a lot of stuff's got to do with water. That's a whole different show, but. All right, man. That's it. I just have that for tonight. You guys have a good evening.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kelly. That's Kelly in Colorado. James, what you got?
Yeah. And I do think it's important to talk about, and this is one of the things I really do believe, it's important to talk about these things that happen to us with other people. Because you can talk about the same experience, and I've had this happen. You can talk about the same experience multiple times, and you never know what you're going to figure out or remember. Not everything, but, and when talking with people, they may even help you figure things out about what was going on. And so I always love hearing about people's experiences. To me, that's the main thing I focus on, because it's just so interesting, and there's so much you can learn again and again from them.
Exactly. Oh, we got a barky dog. So I did promise the other rivers of the underworld in Hades real quick. I can't pronounce these, so let's have Microsoft Mike read this. But there are other rivers here in the underworld, and Styx is one of them. So let's read this, and then we'll finish this sucker up. Of course, it's not going to work. Damn it. Okay, well, I'll have to try and read this. The river Styx. Pyriflegathon, Acheron, and Cocytus, Kokytus, all converge at the center of the underworld on a great marsh, which is also sometimes called the Styx. The important rivers of the underworld are Lethe, Lethe, Eridanos, and Alpheus. And there you go. Just this is from Greek Mythology Fandom Wiki, and links in the description. And check it out. There's some pretty wild stuff here that we kind of didn't get into, but it's fascinating. That again, back shout out to Night Stalker out there with the primal waters, right? And in this case, we have the river Styx and the waters of the underworld. So pretty nutty stuff. But good. I appreciate everybody hanging out and chilling and kicking it with us and doing all the things you do, all the great chat, all the great ideas out there, and all the great phone calls tonight. Our cup runneth over. We are an embarrassment of riches to so many amazing people that contribute, and I appreciate it very much. So thank you to each and every one of you for for hanging out with us, listening, and all the rest of that. And let's roll it. Let's roll the music. And James, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Do it. Dance or something, man. Dance.
I would just say, be kind to everyone, especially when it comes to their experiences, because they are their own. You didn't have them, but it's important to talk about them, and we can learn from them, like I said, and share stories of experiences, and that's how we learn, and keep going from there.
All right. Daryl, anything while we got you on? Got like a minute. I wasn't sure she's there. All right, cool. So thanks again to everybody for contributing, for all the great chat, all the great ideas, all of the great phone calls. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. And you know the drill. If you want to help the show, spread the word. Good old-fashioned word of mouth. And we can beat the algorithms just by spreading the word. Let people know. You can sub up at, of course, Twitch. What was the other one? Rockfin and Patreon. Or if you don't want to do that, that's totally cool. Just listen to the podcast feed. Lots of good stuff on the podcast feed. Old episodes that some of the same amazing people that call into this show all the time, including James here of Salcedo Paranormal. So please give him some love as well. Follow his podcast. Go check it out. I promised to get in your Discord. I'm going to grab that and link that. Let's do that.
I did put it in there.
You did? Okay.
I did put it in there, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do it again just in case. And there we go. All right. Let's get the hell out of here. As we finish, it goes a little something like this. Thanks again to everybody for being part of this. Your time and your energy is the most important thing. And goes like this, James. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.
Look at the chat. That was just buzzing.